Chapter 130. After Su Wan opened her eyes in the executor's warehouse, the pain that felt like she was run over by a car finally disappeared. She stood up and moved her body. For the first time, Su Wan felt that her body was also great. Cough, cough. A certain someone who was completely ignored coughed a few times. Su Wan just noticed that Yi Xian had been standing not far away and staring at her. Do you need something? Su Wan looked up at Yi Xian's face and asked with a cold expression. In each mission world, she could play a variety of people, but in the real world, Su Wan was actually a very cold person. Before meeting Su Rui, she had been living in her own world. She didn't have any friends and didn't need this kind of thing like friends. Really cold, although Yi Xian couldn't help but ridicule in her heart, her face still raised a bright smile. This year's cross-department test, I will bring you and Ding Jujia to participate together. Ding Jujia, Su Wan heard this name and frowned slightly. She didn't have any friends in the lost space, but Su Wan still had an impression of the few people in her department who were similar to her in rank. Ding Jujia had a lowly face, but she had a devilish figure that made others envious. That fellow was a proper snake and scorpion beauty, specialized in trapping the male lead for 100 years. Actually, Su Wan was still very optimistic about Ding Jujia's business ability, but she just couldn't stand that fellow's problem of being smitten when she saw a handsome guy. It must be known that there were many departments in the lost time space. Everyone had first-hand information about their competitors, and someone like Ding Jujia, whose weakness was extremely obvious, could easily be eliminated in the preliminaries. Seeing Su Wan frown, Yi Xian also knew what Su Wan was worried about. She stepped forward and raised her hand, wanting to pat Su Wan's shoulder, but Su Wan nimbly dodged it. Yi Xian thought she suddenly felt vexed. What should she do? Cough. Clearing her throat, Yi Xian still looked at Su Wan with a smile on her face. This time, I will instruct Ding Jujia to pay attention to her image. And, actually, I specifically waited for you here because I wanted you to help me think about how to deal with Su Su. On their side, Su Su should still be bringing Qimu and Yunsheng. Because everyone's golden fingers can't be used, those two people aren't a problem. But Su Su is very troublesome. You should also know that. In the lost time space, Su Su was a very special existence. Because after using the heart-burying box, even if Su Su entered the trial world, he would still not have a heart. He had no desires, and he had no flaws. The way to deal with him, Su Wan spread her hands towards Yi Xian with some difficulty. If I knew how to deal with him, I wouldn't be standing here, and he wouldn't. Live until today. Okay. Yi Xian heard Su Wan's answer. Although she had already expected this, she was still a little disappointed. Then I won't disturb you anymore. Oh, by the way, Ding Jujia is waiting to use cabin 3. I know. Su Wan nodded and walked out of the executive room. She had already told Su Rui in the last world that she would change to the number 2 executive room this time. So when she left here, Su Wan didn't feel nostalgic at all. As long as she thought that she could do missions with Su Rui in every world in the future and didn't have to be alone, Su Wan's usually cold face couldn't help but reveal a rare gentleness. At the door, Ding Jujia and Su Wan brushed past each other. Noticing the faint smile on Su Wan's lips, Ding Jujia, who had just walked to the door, staggered and almost fell at the door. Your mother. This baby must have had an illusion just now. Su Wan can also smile? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Shaking her head, Ding Jujia habitually raised her wrist and looked at the new mission on her communicator. It's really boring recently. The handsome guys in the mission world are either brainless or abnormal. It is said that there is a very fierce newcomer over there. He is extremely demonic and wild. How come I haven't met him even once after entering so many space-time spaces? Should I locate him next time? Should I? While Ding Jujia was struggling to locate a certain newcomer, in the headquarters of the Plane Restorer, Su Rui's newly bought locator had begun to flash, indicating that Su Wan had entered the mission. Su Rui smiled and did not hesitate to walk into his own execution room, number 11. His ranking had been stuck at this position because all the points were meaningless to him now. When Su Rui closed his eyes in the execution room and connected to the mission world, the door of the number 11 execution room was suddenly pushed open from the outside. Looking at the slowly closing execution room, Yun Shang couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'm a step late. As he spoke, he looked down at the stack of information in his hand that he had just copied from Su Su. This was the specific information of all the elite personnel in the other departments. Although he didn't know why Su Ji wanted him to give all this to Su Rui, seeing that Su Rui had entered the mission room, Yun Shang had to turn and leave. In the entire headquarters of the Plane Restorer, no one knew the real reason why Su Su recruited Su Rui. Yun Shang was naturally the same as others. He didn't know that Su Rui had a natural golden finger that others didn't have. Su Rui's spiritual ability was naturally stronger than others, and his perception was also full of value. This also meant that no matter which space-time he entered, no matter what the person he was looking for became, as long as he remembered that person's soul undulation, he would be able to easily capture that familiar spiritual undulation in a sea of people. Therefore, General Su opened a cheat, and in the cross-department trial, Su Su planned to use Su Rui, this deeply hidden trump card, in the mission world. Su Wan was forcefully pushed awake by someone. Su Wan, hand in your homework. The slightly immature female voice carried a trace of timidity. And Su Wan's consciousness gradually sobered up. Homework. What the hell is this? She couldn't help but raise her hand and rub her somewhat uncomfortable head. With her movements, everything in her line of sight gradually became clear. Su Wan realized that she was sitting in a clean and tidy classroom. There were a lot of seats in the classroom, but most of them were empty. Su Wan. It was still the girl from before. This time, her tone was more cautious. Are you not feeling well? Do you want me to take you to the school clinic? Do you want me to help you find Teacher Wen? No, there's no need. Su Wan shook her head and looked at the girl wearing a blue school uniform suit and thick glasses with a slightly scrutinizing gaze. She should be called Su Nuo, the class monitor of this class. The original owner's brain was still messy because of last night's hangover. Fortunately, Su Wan had roughly known the mission plot of this world before entering the mission. The plot of this mission world was very simple. The story took place in an aristocratic school. Actually, it had nothing to do with the school. The original owner Su Wan was the recognized campus belle of this school. Sure enough, the campus belle in the mission world was used as cannon fodder. As a campus belle, Su Wan was naturally surrounded by flower protectors. Her boyfriend, no, now perhaps it should be called ex-boyfriend. Su Wan's ex-boyfriend Luo Yu was the male lead in this world. He was a top student, a tall, rich and handsome top student, a cool and domineering top student. Originally, Su Wan and Luo Yu could be regarded as a talented man and a beautiful woman. Their family backgrounds were comparable and they were very well matched. But just last semester, this school called Feng Hong Aristocratic College suddenly recruited a special enrollment student from outside. Special enrollment students have always been synonymous with poor ghost, bookworm, and so on. They have always been disliked in aristocratic schools, but this time the special enrollment student was a little different. The female special enrollment student named Jiang Yu was not only outstanding in appearance, but also had outstanding martial arts skills. It was said that because she had been a martial arts substitute for a popular star, she was recommended by that star to be specially enrolled in this college. Tuition and accommodation fees were all free. The arrival of Jiang Yu changed the style of the whole school. As long as there is a fight, there will be Jiang Yu's figure. As long as there is a place to bully the weak, there will be Jiang Yu to help. As long as there is a stray dog or a stray cat, there will be the smiling and kind figure of the female lead. In short, she is light, she is electricity, she is the legend of Feng Hong. In just one semester, Jiang Yu became famous in the school and was named the goddess of the new generation by many outstanding boys. Of course, Luo Yu also appreciated Jiang Yu very much at this time. Even after breaking up with Su Wan, Luo Yu immediately began to pursue Jiang Yu in a high-profile manner. But this is actually not the root of the contradiction between Su Wan and Jiang Yu. In fact, although the background of this world takes place on campus, all the main plots take place in the Su family. In D-City, the Su family is also a famous family. Su Wan's father, Su Haicheng, started his business in a seafood restaurant. Now, the Su family's industry not only involves the catering industry, but also the department store industry and supermarket chain. Su Haicheng's wife, Wen Shu, was a lady from a famous family in D-City. When they were young, both of them were enthusiastic volunteers for public welfare. Both of them had taught in remote villages, and it was at that time that they met and fell in love. Later, the two got married locally, and not long after they got married, they had Su-won. Because when Shu's health has been poor, for the sake of his wife's body and his daughter's future, Su Haicheng decided to take his wife and daughter to leave the mountains and return to D-City to work hard. After many years of unremitting efforts, he finally has today's wealth and status. Because the couple only have one daughter, Su-won, in the past 10 years, the two have overly spoiled their daughter, which has also led to a lot of small problems in the original owner. Delicate, willful, princess syndrome. These problems weren't big, but they weren't small either. Because she had been spoiled since she was a child, the original owner never felt that she had any particularly big shortcomings. Until one day, the real female lead Jiangyu appeared, and Su-won's whole life was completely subverted. It turned out that Jiangyu, who came out of the mountains, came to D-City to find relatives. All of this starts with Jiangyu's life experience. She was born in a single-parent family and was raised by her hardworking mother. When Jiangyu was 8 years old, in order to let her have a school, Jiangyu's mother, Zhao Mei, took her to the small county town. The mother and daughter rented a leaky bungalow. Zhao Mei had to work 5 jobs a day from morning to night to afford Jiangyu's expenses in school and the living expenses of 2 people. After years of accumulation, Zhao Mei's body finally collapsed. At this time, Jiangyu was already 17 years old. In fact, during the 9 years that Jiangyu lived in the county town, she often sneaked out to pick up garbage and sell it for money. It was also at that time that Jiangyu met the brothers Xiao Qi and Xiao Yuni. The father of the two was a local gangster, but he was hacked to death by an enemy in a fight. Since then, Xiao Qi and Xiao Yuni were adopted by a martial arts master. They relied on martial arts to support their family since childhood, and Jiangyu naturally learned a lot of martial arts with Xiao Qi. Until Zhao Mei fell ill, the hospital said that if Zhao Mei wanted to get better, she could only do a kidney transplant surgery, and this surgery not only required a matching kidney, but also a large amount of medical expenses. Jiangyu was desperate and went to the Xiao brothers for help. Xiao Qi lent Jiangyu a sum of money and helped her find a job as a martial arts substitute. Jiangyu finally made a sum of money, enough to pay the first hospitalization fee. At this time, the hospital suddenly informed Jiangyu that her blood type did not match Zhao Mei's, so she could not exchange her kidney to Zhao Mei. At this time, Zhao Mei, who was already dying, finally cried and told Jiangyu the truth of the matter. It turned out that Jiangyu was not her biological daughter. In the clinic in the mountains, Zhao Mei and Wenshu gave birth to children on the same day, and both of them gave birth to daughters. At that time, because Wenshu was weak, she fainted after giving birth. Zhao Mei took advantage of the absence of the midwife to exchange the 2 girls. At that time, she was really selfish. Her husband had just died. She was afraid that she could not support her daughter, so she was possessed for a while. 2 months later, Zhao Mei regretted it, but Su Haicheng's family had already moved away. Zhao Mei has always felt that she owed Jiangyu for more than 10 years. She tried her best to give her the best, but unfortunately, in the end, her body collapsed first. Zhao Mei did not survive the surgery after all, and she left some clues in a photo, instructing Jiangyu to go to D-City to find her biological parents and also to help take care of Zhao Mei's biological daughter. Jiangyu set foot in D-City with her adoptive mother's wish and determination to find her relatives, and after some twists and turns, she finally found her biological parents. Just overnight, Jiangyu changed from a village girl to the eldest daughter of the Su family, and Su-won also fell from heaven to hell overnight. Although the Su couple resented Zhao Mei from the bottom of their hearts, the children were innocent. They had also given too much affection to Su-won over the years, so in the end, the couple did not let Su-won leave the Su family, but let her and Jiangyu be sisters. From a genuine miss to a dependent, the gap in Su-won's heart can be imagined. Depressed, she began to drink and began to skip classes. After a long time, the feelings between her and Luoyu became weaker and weaker. When Su-won came back to her senses and wanted to save it, Luoyu had been moved by the strong and brave Jiangyu, and did not hesitate to break up with Su-won and began to pursue Jiangyu. Chapter 131. The early morning sun shone through the clean and bright floor-to-ceiling windows of the classroom, making people unable to open their eyes. Not all the students in the classroom of grade 2 and 3 had arrived yet. Looking at the unfamiliar yet familiar tender faces around her, Su-won opened the school bag on her seat. Other than a few brand new teaching materials, there wasn't even a pin inside. So what homework? How could that kind of thing exist? I didn't bring homework. Su-won emptied her school bag, and then brought the deflated school bag in front of Su-nua and shook it hard in front of her eyes. Ah, it's okay, it's okay. Su-nua didn't expect Su-won to talk to herself so kindly. In recent days, Su-won's whole person seemed to have eaten gunpowder. Whoever talked to her would be shot. Su-nua waved her hand at Su-won and turned to leave. Just when she turned around, she seemed to suddenly think of something and hesitantly stopped. She looked at Su-won with a hesitant face. Su-won, your complexion is very bad. If you're really not feeling well, I'd better take you to the school's clinic, okay? To be honest, Su-won's current appearance does look pretty bad. Last night, the original owner of the body drank beer the whole night. In the morning, she came to class in a daze with dark circles under her eyes and a wrinkled school uniform. The first thing she did when she sat in her seat was to sleep. In this state, it would be strange if the complexion on her face looked good. Feeling the concern and nervousness in Su-nua's tone, Su-won couldn't help but smile at her. I'm fine, I will ask teacher one for leave. When Wenhao, T University's top student, the new class teacher of grade 2 and 3. In the memory of the original owner, teacher 1 is a very handsome and gentle man. But she must not know that this one Wenhao is actually the heir of a big family, and he will be one of Jiang Yu's pursuers in the future. Speaking of the devil, Su-won was thinking of Jiang Yu, and Jiang Yu's slender figure had already appeared at the door of the class. Yes, the two of them are still classmates. Jiang Yu was tall and inherited Wenshu's beauty. Although she wore a uniform blue school uniform, she stood in front of everyone with a distinctive aura. At this time, Jiang Yu's beautiful eyes turned around the classroom. When she saw Su-won's figure, her eyes immediately lit up, and then she went straight to Su-won. Xiao-won, why didn't you go home last night? Do you know how worried Mom and Dad were? Jiang Yu's voice was very crisp. At this time, she did not deliberately lower her voice. With her question, the noisy classroom suddenly quieted down. He didn't go back for the whole night. If this happened to an adult, it would be a very normal thing, but they were still students. This year, everyone was only 17 years old, not yet adults. Most importantly, Su-won was a girl, a beautiful campus flower. The beautiful campus belle stayed out all night and whatnot. This was definitely the best title to flood the campus BBS, okay? Feeling that the people around her were whispering, Jiang Yu was also stunned for a moment, and then she awkwardly scratched her head at Su-won. Xiao-won, I don't mean that, I mean. Jiang Yu wanted to explain something, but Su-won suddenly put the empty school bag on her shoulder and then stood up indifferently. I don't want to know what you mean, and it's not your turn to intervene in my affairs. Speaking of this, Su-won did not look at Jiang Yu, carried her school bag, and walked towards the door of the classroom with her head held high. Xiao-won. Jiang Yu did not give up. She rushed to the door of the classroom and blocked Su-won's way. Xiao-won, the monthly exam is coming soon. You can't skip class anymore. Who said I was going to skip class? Su-won lazily raised her eyelids at Jiang Yu, and the corner of her mouth raised a mocking smile. I didn't bring stationery. Can I go home and get it? Jiang Yu, don't always be so self-righteous. A lot of things are not necessarily right just because you think they are right. Get out of the way. After saying this, Su-won forcefully brushed away Jiang Yu's arm that was blocking her and strode out of the classroom. Jiang Yu stood at the door of the classroom, staring blankly at the direction of Su-won's departure. At this moment, the expression on her face was full of grievance and sadness, but these negative emotions were quickly suppressed by her. She habitually patted her white cheek and smirked at herself. Jiang Yu, you can do it. One day, Su-won will like you. General Su is looking at you darkly. Do you feel it, girl? As if to prove her determination, Jiang Yu clenched her small fist again, and then smiled and turned back to the classroom. At this time, a straight figure was standing by the window of the classroom corridor, and Jiang Yu's every move just fell into his eyes. What an interesting girl. The young man by the window muttered to himself, then turned around and slowly left. The playground of Fenghang campus is particularly large. In order to ensure the safety of the campus, the school prohibits cars from entering the campus. Of course, all rules are meant to be broken. Suwon was wandering around the campus playground with an empty school bag, and a Porsche sports car rushed in the direction of the playground. Perhaps because there was no one else on the playground at this time, Suwon, who was wandering alone, became a very obvious target. Creak. Accompanied by the roar of the motor and the shrill sound of the brakes, the red Porsche sports car stopped in front of Suwon. Suwon's face remained unchanged, and her eyes calmly watched a red-haired boy jump out of the sports car. This red-haired boy, Suwon knows, Ling Qing, the heir of Ling's enterprise, is also a third-year student of Fenghang School and one of the best friends of Luo Yu. Ling Qing is also an influential figure in Fenghang, and he, who has always been high-profile, will never be low-key when he can be high-profile. Suwon, I haven't seen you for a few days. Why are you so down? When Ling Qing was in the car, he actually saw Suwon's haggard face. When Suwon and Luo Yu were together in the past, she had a lot of small problems. A delicate girl like her had never been the type that Ling Qing liked. Now that Luo Yu finally came to a realization and broke up with Suwon, Ling Qing finally met Suwon once, and naturally couldn't let go of the opportunity to ridicule Suwon and embarrass her. In the face of Ling Qing's ridicule, Suwon just looked at him quietly, then picked up her school bag, turned in a direction, and silently walked towards the school gate. There are not many other things in this world, but there are a lot of mad dogs who support the female lead. This Ling Qing will also be Jiang Yu's pursuer in the future, and even because of Jiang Yu, he and Luo Yu became enemies. Of course, how to compete for the female lead? Whether it is 1, 3, 5 or 2, 4 or 6, this is the business of that group of men. The main thing Suwon has to consider is actually, where is Su Rue? Because there are too many supporting male characters who like, love, and openly or secretly love Jiang Yu in this world, and many of these people have never been seen by the original owner, so Suwon can't estimate Su Rue's identity at all. According to the original plot of this world, Suwon is going to be killed by cannon fodder, and the reason why she is cannon fodder is because she doesn't know what's good for her and goes against Jiang Yu again and again. In the near future, there will be many excellent men around Jiang Yu. These men are stronger and more ruthless than one. The original owner Suwon finally died in the hands of a gang boss, and the boss's acquaintance with Jiang Yu was also very dramatic. At that time, the man's gang was in internal strife. He was seriously injured and fainted in the alley. Finally, he was kindly picked up by Jiang Yu, who passed by after school and brought home. Chapter 132. Su family's villa is not far from Fenghang College. When Suwon left the school gate, she sent a message to Wen Wenhao and asked for a class leave, and then took a taxi back to Su family. Early in the morning, Su Haicheng had already gone to the company to work. When Suwon opened the door and entered the house, the hourly worker at home, Aunt Zhang, was cleaning. "Miss, you are back." Seeing Suwon's figure, Aunt Zhang immediately put down the rag in her hand and looked at her nervously and respectfully. Aunt Zhang has been working in the Su family for several years, and she is also very clear about the temper of eldest Miss Su. Especially after the appearance of Jiang Yu, the real eldest Miss, Suwon's temper is getting worse day by day. Children at this age are actually rebellious and chinibyu. Like the original owner, she suddenly changed from a princess to a Cinderella, and the gap in her heart can be imagined. Just like every naughty and rebellious brat, they don't really want to dominate. Perhaps they just want to get a little more attention from others. Suwon was originally the princess of this family. She had no worries about food and clothing and had unlimited love from her parents. Since Jiang Yu appeared, because the Su couple felt that they owed their biological daughter, they subconsciously wanted to double their kindness to Jiang Yu. And Jiang Yu was particularly considerate and sensible, so the feelings of the family of three rose sharply. The original owner felt that she was neglected and abandoned, which was also inevitable. In fact, there are no parents in the world, and Su Haicheng and his wife are kind and enthusiastic people. In all honesty, they have treated Suwon very well. In the original plot, because Suwon was jealous of Jiang Yu, she robbed her beloved people one by one, and she resented Jiang Yu for robbing her parents. So she went against Jiang Yu everywhere, and in the end, she embarked on a path of being cannon fodder. Suwon? A gentle male voice interrupted Suwon's thoughts. She stood in the living room and subconsciously looked up and saw the thin figure on the stairs. The man on the stairs was wearing a clean and fresh beige sweater, leaning against the stairs, slender fingers gently resting on the handrail of the stairs. Suwon subconsciously glanced at his hands. These hands are used to save people, and at the same time, they are also sharp weapons for killing people. You're here. Suwon retracted her gaze, and according to the tone of the original owner in her memory, she greeted the man indifferently. What's wrong? You don't even call me big brother anymore? The man on the stairs smiled warmly at Suwon and then slowly walked down the stairs step by step. The man was very handsome and his brows had a rare elegance and gentleness. This kind of person's smile was like a spring breeze, and it was hard for people to hate him. But, as it happened, Suwon had an extremely strong vigilance towards this kind of jade-like gentleman. She couldn't help it. The shadow that Susu left on her back then was too big. As long as she saw this cultured and refined noble son, she would feel a strong sense of disgust. Suyu walked gracefully in front of Suwon and looked at his cousin with gentle eyes. It was obviously the same face, but the girl in front of him gave Suyu a very strange feeling. His eyes flashed, but his face still maintained the gentle smile as usual. Aunt's health is getting worse and worse. I just checked her and she fell asleep. Suwon, if you have time, spend more time with her. Suwon actually knew that when Shu didn't have much time left. Hearing Suyu's words, Suwon nodded seriously. I know. I will spend more time with her. With that, Suwon stepped up to go upstairs. At the moment of passing, Suyu suddenly grabbed Suwon's shoulder. Suwon frowned in pain and turned to look at Suyu with a cold face. What are you doing? There's something on your shoulder. Suyu smiled at Suwon and then raised his hands without a trace, looking innocent. Suwon didn't say anything and carried her school bag back to her bedroom on the second floor. As soon as she entered the door, Suwon immediately leaned against the door with a pale face. She pulled open her school uniform and tilted her head to check her shoulder. At this time, her white shoulder had left a slender finger mark, and the red mark was particularly conspicuous. Suyu. Suwon drooped her eyelids, really an unfriendly guy. According to the mission plot grasped by Suwon, Suyu is a doctor on the surface, but in fact, he is an S-class killer who has been wanted by Interpol for many years. His existence is similar to an invisible plug-in. When the Su family is in trouble, he will take action. When Jiangyu and her man are plotted against by the enemy, he will also take action. Just now, the two people only met face to face, but it was obvious that Suyu, who had the keen intuition of a super killer, had doubts about himself, and he had no scruples and directly made a move. This was a test, but also a warning. After rearranging her clothes, Suwon no longer thought about Suyu, but found her stationery and other learning tools on the messy desk according to the memory of the original owner. After packing everything, Suwon turned and went downstairs. Outside the villa, a black Lexus was parked quietly outside the door. Seeing Suwon coming out with her school bag, Suyu, who was sitting in the driver's seat, smiled and lowered the window. Going to school? I'll take you. Suwon didn't answer, but still walked silently to the car, opened the door and sat quietly on the back seat. Along the way, Suwon leaned on the back seat and closed her eyes, and Suyu was also very focused on driving. Neither of them spoke until the car stopped at the school gate. Suwon still silently opened the door and got out of the car. Seeing that she was about to leave without saying a word, Suyu finally said slowly, Suwon, uncle and aunt have always regarded you as their biological daughter. You don't let them down? Suwon's figure paused for a moment. She turned slightly sideways and glanced at Suyu in the car. I know. Leaving these 3 words, Suwon shook her head and strode away with her school bag on her back. Suyu sat in the car and quietly watched the petite figure get farther and farther until it disappeared. He then retracted his gaze, raised his slender hands, crossed his hands and smiled softly. Obedient children are good children. If you don't obey, you can only disappear. With a flash of light in his eyes, Suyu started the car and drove away. When Suwon returned to the classroom, the second class was halfway through. She knocked on the door and didn't go to see the teacher's face. She went straight back to her seat and sat down. Then she took out the book from her school bag and listened attentively. The high school curriculum in this world is not difficult. As a person who has been taught by a special tutor, Suwon has no pressure during the class. The morning passed by unknowingly. When the bell rang for the lunch break, the classroom was immediately filled with cheers. Everyone scrambled to get out of the classroom. At this time, a tall figure appeared at the door of Class 2 and Class 3 on time. When Suwon and Luoyu were together, she went to find Luoyu during the lunch break. But now, Luoyu has to report here every day. Of course, the person he wants to see is Jiangyu. Sure enough, only favored people will have such preferential treatment. Seeing the figure of senior Luoyu, all the boys in the class looked fanatical. When a person is too good, so good that you don't even have the courage to envy, jealousy, and hate, you can only worship him fanatically. And top student Luo is such a particularly excellent person. The entire Fenghong, regardless of men or women, can only bow to him. Suwon has been sitting in her seat and slowly packing up her things. The schoolwork is just a waste of time for her. Now Suwon is already thinking about her future path. She knows that the original owner has a zodiac card. The card stores her New Year's money and pocket money over the years. Now she has saved up 100,000 yuan. This money is enough for Suwon to find a place to live outside and then slowly develop her career. Suwon did not leave her seat, and Jiangyu in the classroom did not leave either. When everyone else left, only Luoyu's figure was left at the door. Luoyu was very tall and had a good figure. He was naturally dazzling when he stood there. After being watched by people passing by in the corridor for a while, Luoyu frowned slightly and simply walked directly to the classroom, looking at Jiangyu from afar. "Jiangyu, let's go." Hearing Luoyu's words, Jiangyu's eyes turned, smiled and came to Suwon's desk, looked at her sideways with a smile. "Xiaowon, let's go eat together." Jiangyu knows that Suwon likes Luoyu, so, even if Luoyu is a particularly excellent person, he is also the person her sister likes, and she can't snatch his love. Obviously, Jiangyu still wants to bring Luoyu and Suwon back together, but she seems to have forgotten that there is a word in this world called the more you help, the busier you become. Sure enough, when Luoyu heard Jiangyu's words, his slender eyes subconsciously fell on Suwon's face, and his eyes revealed a trace of coldness without concealing it. In Luoyu's heart, Jiangyu has always been so warm and kind, but she is too kind to see Suwon's malice towards her at all. "I have an appointment." Suwon finally packed up her things and slowly looked up at Jiangyu and Luoyu. Seeing that Jiangyu still wanted to say something, Suwon added in a cold tone, "Also, don't always put me and this guy together in the future. I am not very familiar with him. Please let me go." As she spoke, Suwon stood up, bypassed Luoyu's side and walked out quickly. "Xiaowon!" Jiangyu yelled again behind her. Seeing Suwon's footsteps kept leaving, Jiangyu's face was anxious, and she lifted her foot to chase after her. As a result, she was pulled by Luoyu next to her. "What are you pulling me for?" Jiangyu anxiously wanted to break free from Luoyu's grip. "She doesn't want to appreciate your kindness at all. Why do you want to ask for trouble?" Luoyu looked at the stubborn Jiangyu in front of him, and his heart was a little distressed for her. She worked so hard to get Suwon's approval, but what about the other party? That woman doesn't know what's good for her. Seeing that Luoyu's face was full of coldness when he mentioned Suwon, Jiangyu couldn't help but bite her lip. "Xiaowon is also very kind. She just has a misunderstanding about me, and it will get better once the misunderstanding is eliminated. Luoyu, don't always target her. In fact, Xiaowon, she really likes you." Speaking of this, Jiangyu's tone was a bit complicated. In fact, she also appreciated Luoyu, such an excellent and elegant boy. But whenever Jiangyu remembered Suwon's soulless appearance after being lovelorn, she forced herself not to have a little delusion towards Luoyu. "She likes me? What about you? You don't like me?" Luoyu was startled when he heard Jiangyu's words, and then he suddenly leaned over, and his tall body instantly pressed the slender Jiangyu against the desk at the side. Looking at the handsome face that was getting closer and closer, Jiangyu's heartbeat accelerated uncontrollably. I. Jiangyu's face turned red, and her tone involuntarily became urgent. I didn't." "No? Then why are you blushing?" Luoyu looked at Jiangyu's flushed face because of shyness and couldn't help but get closer. His long eyelashes were about to touch Jiang Yu's cheek. At this time, a weak female voice suddenly sounded outside the classroom. Jiang Yu, there are two people looking for you at the school gate. They said, they're your friends? Su Nuo stood outside the classroom with an embarrassed face. She didn't expect to see such a scene. Chapter 133. Fenghang School has its own cafeteria, but the students in the school are still used to eating in private restaurants outside the school, and all the restaurants around this aristocratic school are very high-end. During the lunch break, there were a lot of people at the school gate. Occasionally, there would be people like Ling Qing driving a sports car and whistling through the school gate with beautiful women. Suwon came out late. There were not many people at the school gate at this time on weekdays, but today there were a lot of people around the gate, and many people seemed to be watching the fun. For this kind of gossip, both the original owner and Suwon were not very enthusiastic. Just as Suwon wanted to go around, Jiang Yu's figure suddenly rushed from behind Suwon, and then Luo Yu's tall figure followed closely. When passing by Suwon, Luo Yu couldn't help but stare at Suwon. Suwon, who did I provoke? Secretly curling her lips, Suwon still couldn't help but look up at the direction of Jiang Yu's departure. It was this glance that immediately made Suwon stunned. The afternoon sun was particularly bright. At this time, at the gate of Fenghang School, there were two tall figures standing side by side. These were two young people who looked only in their early 20s. Both of them were wearing cheap shirts and jeans, and the sneakers on their feet were also covered with dust. Such a dress looked like migrant workers who had just entered the city with a dusty atmosphere. But these two young people were particularly handsome. The slightly taller young man had a cold face and calm eyes. Even if he was wearing such cheap clothes, it couldn't hide his innate sharpness. As for the other young man, he had a cute and handsome baby face. His clear eyes were blinking curiously. That adorable expression of his was enough to kill a lot of people. They didn't know when the two people came, but it was obvious that they had been watched for a long time, and they didn't seem to be aware of it. Most of the girls surrounding them were Fenghang's girls. Although these two handsome guys were dressed a little shabby, it didn't affect their beauty at all. There were also many beautiful girls with X-ray eyes who had read countless men, and they keenly observed the excellent figures under their thin shirts, 8 abdominal muscles, mermaid line, and so on. Aya, so sexy and seductive. Xiaoqi, Xiao Yuni. Jiang Yu, who hurried to the door, suddenly shouted excitedly, and then she bent over, panting heavily, and looked at the two who were surrounded with a bright smile. Jiang Yu. The Xiao brothers at the door immediately looked in the direction of the sound, and both of their faces showed a very surprised look. Even Xiaoqi couldn't wait to rush in the direction of Jiang Yu. Xiao Yuni, who was behind him, was stunned for a moment and quickly followed his elder brother. Jiang Yu stood in the same place and looked at her childhood sweetheart whom she hadn't seen for many days. She had known them for almost 10 years. Needless to say, the feelings of the three people were naturally deep, but it was really the first time that Jiang Yu saw Xiaoqi's always calm face showing such an impatient look. Big brother Xiao is really. Jiang Yu smiled helplessly. Seeing that Xiaoqi's slender figure was already in front of her, she opened her mouth and was about to speak. But the oncoming man passed her without stopping and went straight behind her. Jiang Yu was stunned in place, and Xiao Yuni, who followed his elder brother's footsteps, was also stunned. Big brother. Is he okay? Although he has been weird during this time, he wouldn't really not know Jiang Yu, right? Just when Xiao Yuni hesitated to call his elder brother back, he heard all the surrounding onlookers making a high decibel scream. At this time, Xiaoqi had stopped in front of Su Wan. Without giving her any chance to speak, he had leaned down and kissed Su Wan's lips. His arms were very powerful, and he seemed to want to rub Su Wan into his body. At this time, Su Wan was held in someone's arms, and she was out of breath after being kissed. There were more and more people around, and even some people began to take out their mobile phones to record videos. Xiao Yuni was completely dumbfounded. With a pair of big eyes, he looked incredulously at the two people who were hugging and kissing in front of him. At this time, there was only one thought in his mind. Bad. Is Big Brother really crazy? How can he hug a person and kiss her? Will he be arrested by the police if he does this? Just when Xiao Yuni was worried, those who recognized Su Wan around him were even more noisy. The perverted young man kissed the fair, rich, and beautiful campus belle. Is this a counterattack? General Su. You are perverted. Your whole family is perverted. At this time, Su Wan had been kissed until her face was red, and she was out of breath. Seeing that she was struggling, the person in front of her finally let go of her reluctantly. Su Wan. At the moment when Xiaoqi released Su Wan, Zhang Yu immediately rushed to Su Wan, raised her hand and grabbed Su Wan's wrist. Xiao Wan, he is my friend. He didn't mean it. Don't hit him. Su Wan. Stunned for a moment, Su Wan looked at the excited Zhang Yu in front of her with a strange look. Did I say I wanted to hit him? And what do you mean by it wasn't intentional? He kissed me in front of so many people. This is my first kiss. Hearing Su Wan's words, there was a big uproar around, and even some people secretly turned their heads to look at Luo Yu, who was also standing in the crowd with a cold face. Oh, I seem to know something accidentally. For example, the first kiss or something. Zhang Yu hesitated when she heard Su Wan's words. She didn't know how to solve the situation in front of her. God knows what kind of madness Xiaoqi had. How could he suddenly? Did he already know about the Su family? So he did this deliberately to help her embarrass Su Wan? I'll be responsible. At this time, a certain man who had been silent finally spoke faintly. He ignored Zhang Yu's tangled face beside him, but stared at Su Wan's face tenderly. I'll be responsible for you. Your mother. This scene is really one climax after another. Originally, a perverted, handsome man kissing the female campus belle was explosive enough. As a result, this handsome man is actually a friend of the campus belle's rival? Of course, this is not over yet. Now this handsome man is even talking nonsense about being responsible for the campus belle. Buddy, I admit that you are handsome, but being handsome can't be eaten. Have you seen our campus belle Su's ex? Yes, it's the tall, rich, and handsome one in the crowd. You have to be at least half as rich and powerful as the top student Luo to dare to talk nonsense, right? While countless spectators were waiting for the handsome guy to be humiliated by the school bell, Su Wan narrowed her eyes and chuckled at the man in front of her. Okay, since you want to take responsibility, from now on, you are my, Su Wan's man. Onlookers, campus belle, this script is wrong. Bitterman. It turns out that this is the right way to pursue the campus belle? I really learned a lot today. General Su, what's with your expression of a flower inserted in cow dung? Yes, Xiaoqi is naturally Su Wan. When he entered the mission, he bitterly found that he had become the childhood sweetheart of the female lead. And there was also a silly and cute drag bottle beside him. Xiao Yuni was innocently shot. Chapter 134. Jiangnan was a unique, private home cuisine restaurant located on the right side of Fenghang College. This restaurant was also a relatively famous brand of Su's restaurant chain. At noon, there were a lot of guests in the restaurant, and the Platinum VIP area on the third floor of the restaurant was much quieter than downstairs. Sitting in the luxurious and spacious private room, Xiao Yuni was like a curious baby, blinking his big eyes and constantly looking at everything in the room. In contrast, the four people around him seemed very silent. Su Wan and Su Rue sat together, while Zhang Yu sat on her right, and Luo Yu, who had a cold face, was on the other side of Zhang Yu. Su Wan was also speechless about this pair of male and female leads. They went out to have a meal, and they also shamelessly want to be a high-degree light bulb. What's wrong with this? Isn't it good to play with your ambiguity at school? Miss Su, the manager of the restaurant, was a middle-aged fat man. When he learned that Su Wan and Zhang Yu came with their friends, he immediately came to entertain them in person. As an employee of Su's, the manager was naturally fortunate to attend the banquet held by the Su family to welcome Zhang Yu. At the banquet, Su Haiqing admitted that Zhang Yu was his and Wenshu's biological daughter. Of course, in order to take care of Su Wan's feelings, he did not tell Su Wan's life experience, only saying that Zhang Yu was their eldest daughter who was lost many years ago. Some people didn't believe this statement at first. Everyone thought that this girl was probably Su Haiqing's illegitimate daughter outside, but when everyone saw Zhang Yu, who looked very similar to Wenshu, everyone began to believe Su Haiqing's words. At this time, when everyone had just sat down, the restaurant manager rushed over for the first time. As soon as he entered the door, he greeted Jiang Yu and Su Wan enthusiastically. Seeing Luo Yu next to Jiang Yu, the manager's small eyes narrowed, and the smile on his face became more brilliant. It turns out that young Master Luo is also here. Today, our restaurant just has a batch of the freshest matsutake that has just arrived by air. Young Master Luo, would you like to try it? Luo Yu's family was very prominent, and the Su family usually had to look at their face, so the restaurant manager would flatter Luo Yu so much at this time. Cough. Su Wan coughed and closed the menu in her hand. Today is my treat. Manager Wang, don't you see that my boyfriend is hungry? Manager Wang, isn't young Master Luo the boyfriend of Miss Su? Forgive me for not being informed. I still don't know that their Miss Su had been dumped by young Master Luo a few days ago, however. Manager Wang was a business elite after all. He turned his gaze and saw Su Rui next to Su Wan. Don't look at this young man's poor attire. His imposing manner was there. As long as one had some insight, they could see that he was definitely not an ordinary person. This young master must be the distinguished guest of Miss Su. I'm Wang Luo. Wang Luo quickly walked to Su Rui's side and smiled brightly at him. Her small eyes were about to narrow into a line. How should I address you, young master? Just order whatever you want. We have everything here. As the saying goes, one does not slap a smiling face. This Wang Luo was also a troublemaker, and no one could find any fault with him. Su Rui came with Xiao Yuni all the way, and he was really a little hungry now. Yuni, what do you want to eat? Turning his head to look at his younger brother who was a burden, Su Rui asked faintly. Xiao Yuni blinked his big eyes and looked at the dazzling array of dishes, but in his eyes, it was a completely unknown menu. He shook his head innocently. Big brother, I don't know. Forgive me for not entering such a high-end restaurant since I was a child. I don't know what to eat at all, big brother. Please help, then let me order for you. Su Rui also remembered at this moment that the identity of the Xiao brothers was estimated to have never entered such a high-end restaurant. He raised his hand and took the menu on the side and casually flipped through it. The dishes seemed to be good. He casually ordered 2 of Su Wan's favorites, and then thought of his brother's foodie nature. Su Rui couldn't help but order a few more plates. After ordering the dishes, Su Rui habitually turned his head and looked at Su Wan with a gentle face. What else do you want to eat? Do you want a drink? There are classes in the afternoon. We can't drink. Without waiting for Su Wan to answer, Jiang Yu on the side had already answered first. Su Rui's face sank. Talkative light bulbs and whatnot were the most annoying. Su Wan shrugged helplessly and gestured to Su Rui to be patient. Luo Yu, who had been coldly looking at Su Rui and Su Wan, looked at them without saying a word. Their every move as they sat there was completely unlike strangers they had just met. Somehow, the scene of Su Rui hugging and kissing Su Wan suddenly flashed in Luo Yu's mind. That scene made his heart inexplicably irritated. The original Su Wan was indeed very reserved and hypocritical. Her princess disease was very serious, but she could also be called a very elegant lady. In order to maintain her noble image as a schoolbelle, Su Wan's behavior had always been very decent. Even when she was alone with Luo Yu, she would only pull his clothes and hold his fingers when she acted coquettishly at him. At that time, although Luo Yu was not very tired of Su Wan's temper, in fact, he still felt that she was too reserved and boring. Today, in front of his eyes, Su Wan and another man who came out of nowhere kissed in public. This scene was indeed somewhat beyond Luo Yu's expectations. Moreover, when he thought that Su Wan and this man were very likely to have known each other a long time ago, or even when she was in love with him, Luo Yu's face became even worse. Su Wan, it's not the first time you two have met, right? Restraining the coldness in his eyes, Luo Yu raised his chin slightly. Although he was asking Su Wan, his eyes calmly fell on Su Rui's face. Although Luo Yu did not show much, the deeply hidden hostility and sense of superiority were accurately captured by Su Rui. Su Rui glanced at Luo Yu faintly, then put his arm on Su Wan's shoulder and looked at Su Wan's side profile with a smile. Dear, who is he? An outsider. Su Wan replied casually, then raised her hand and took Su Rui's arm off her shoulder. Eat obediently. After eating, I will help you find a place to live. Luo Yu. As an outsider who has been completely ignored by Su Wan, he expressed that he was very unhappy now. Although Su Wan did not give Luo Yu an answer, Luo Yu already had the answer he wanted in his heart. No matter whether the two of them knew each other before or not, Su Wan's performance at the school gate today and her current posture were obviously done for him to see. Is she planning to embarrass herself? At this time, Jiang Yu, who was sitting next to Luo Yu, had the same complicated mood as him. In Jiang Yu's memory, Xiaoqi has always been a very considerate, calm, and secure big brother. During the days when she lost her adoptive mother, it was also Xiaoqi who kept comforting Jiang Yu to get out of the grief at that time, and now, the Xiaoqi in front of her made Jiang Yu feel strange. The big brother who used to smile gently at her now looked at her indifferently as if he was looking at a stranger. In the end, what happened to him during the days when they were separated? Chapter 135. Although Su Wan has no pressure about skipping classes, there is a good student and a meddlesome female lead by her side. Seeing that Su Wan wanted to skip classes to accompany Su Rue and Xiao Yuni, Jiang Yu first tried her best to dissuade her. Finally, she simply stayed by Xiao Yuni's side and didn't leave. She couldn't persuade Su Wan to repent and be saved, so she wanted to try the law by herself. For such a kind and persistent female lead, Su Wan is also intoxicated. In the end, Su Wan could only helplessly go back to class. Su Rue sent Su Wan all the way to the school gate. Before parting, he suddenly thought of something. He narrowed his eyes and opened his palm towards Su Wan. Now that I'm yours to support, you should at least give me a tip, Sugar Lord? General Su, you are naughty again. Brother Xiao? Jiang Yu on the side widened her eyes and looked at Su Rue incredulously. Brother Xiao, are you short of money now? I still have some here. Jiang Yu began to rummage through her pockets. After a long time, she found 315 yuan. General Su, this is not enough to buy a tie for this general, okay? Seeing that Su Rue looked at her with a strange look, Jiang Yu subconsciously clenched the 100 yuan bill in her palm. Is it not enough? Is there something wrong with your family? I can go home and raise money. Oh? Hearing Jiang Yu's words, Su Rue's eyes flashed, and suddenly stretched out his big hand and pulled the more than 300 yuan in her palm. Listening to you, I remember that when Aunt Zhao was hospitalized and died, I lent you 30,000 yuan. You are now the eldest daughter of the Su family. You won't renege on your debt with a poor man like me, right? Hearing Su Rue mention the past, Jiang Yu's face immediately became pale. Brother Xiao, you don't misunderstand. I didn't mean to not pay back the money. Jiang Yu anxiously wanted to explain something, but was interrupted by Su Rue impatiently. This is the interest. You can give the rest of the money directly to Su Wan. Su Rue didn't look at the banknotes in his hand and threw them to Xiao Yuni behind him. Take it, keep it to buy apples. Xiao Yuni. Big brother, can I say that I hate eating apples? Even if Xiao Yuni is slow, he has long noticed the change in his elder brother's attitude towards Jiang Yu. At first, Xiao Yuni thought it was his own illusion. Now it seems that elder brother really hates Jiang Yu? Why was that? Xiao Yuni silently took the money. Although there were 10,000 reasons in his heart, he didn't speak, just silently playing a foodie. I'm going in. Class is about to begin. At this time, Su Wan looked at her wristwatch and said while taking out the bank card she found when she went home in the morning from her school bag, I have given you all my belongings. The password is 6 6s. You take Uni to change his clothes first. After I finish school, we will go to see the house together. As she spoke, Su Wan was about to turn around and leave. In the end, the moment Su Rue took the bank card, he directly grabbed Su Wan's hand. His wrist slightly exerted force and Su Wan's entire body was brought into his embrace. He lightly kissed Su Wan's lips and the two people's foreheads touched each other. Su Rue then smiled at Su Wan with satisfaction. See you after school? And Su Wan smiled and nodded. Then she left Su Rue's embrace and turned to walk towards the school. From beginning to end, Jiang Yu stood aside and looked at the two of them stupidly. If at this time, she still can't see that there is something fishy between the two people, then she is really a fool. Brother Xiao, you and Xiao Wan. As you can see, Su Rue raised the bank card in his hand. Do you know what is love at first sight? Well, you should also go to class. By the way, don't forget to return the money to Su Wan. Su Rue patted Xiao Yuni's head with the bank card in his hand. Yuni, let's go. Brother will take you shopping, and your sister-in-law will pay the bill. Xiao Yuni, shopping is also excellent. It is said that there is a street of specialty snacks near the shopping center in D-City. Seeing that the Xiao brothers turned and left without stopping, Jiang Yu forcefully pulled the corner of her school uniform, and her face was full of grievances. Brother Xiao seems to be in need of money. Did he deliberately draw a line with me because he knew that she had become a rich lady and misunderstood that she would turn her back on him when she became rich? At this time, the class preparation bell just rang. Jiang Yu, who came back to her senses, remembered that her first class in the afternoon was the class teacher's class. She took a deep breath, turned around and ran quickly in the direction of the teaching building. Because Jiang Yu's speed was too fast, when passing a flower bed corner, she almost collided with a figure in front of her. Fortunately, Jiang Yu's skills were good, and the flexibility of her body was particularly good. Before colliding with the other party, Jiang Yu supported the flower bed on one side with one hand, and with a side somersault, she had already turned over from the side of the person. Her beautiful feet landed on the ground. Jiang Yu took a deep breath and looked up apologetically. Classmate, I didn't. Teacher won? The man in front of her wore gold-rimmed glasses, a snow-white shirt. The shirt cuffs were neatly rolled up, and in his right hand was a neat lesson plan. The gentle and handsome man in front of her was Jiang Yu's class teacher, Wenhao. Jiang Yu? Wenhao looked at Jiang Yu and smiled gently. Good kung fu. Jiang Yu's face turned red, and she rubbed her hair awkwardly. Teacher Wen, I didn't mean it. I'm going to be late. I'll be scolded by the teacher if I'm late. Goodbye, Teacher Wen. Looking at Jiang Yu leaving in a panic, Wenhao pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose in amusement. It seems that the teacher she was talking about is him, right? Jiang Yu, this girl, is really muddle-headed. At 2:00 in the afternoon, most students of all grades of Fenghang College were still in class. At this time, a variety of anonymous posts suddenly appeared in the most popular BBS on campus. The titles of these posts were particularly eye-catching, and there was only one protagonist in all the posts, that is Su Wan. The school belle Su Wan and the mysterious man kissed on campus. Who did the school belle give her first kiss to? There was such a thing. A rich and beautiful woman spent a lot of money to support a handsome young man. On the 100 Ways to Kiss the School Belle, the original poster personally, see? There were no secrets in the school, and the campus forum was the breeding ground of countless gossip and scandals. There were pictures and the truth about Su Wan and Su Rue, and it quickly became the hottest topic on Fenghang College. Therefore, when Su Rue appeared outside the school wearing a newly bought suit after school in the evening, it was no surprise that he once again encountered a strong onlooker from all walks of life. Chapter 136. D-City is a first-tier city. The total price of a house in the urban area is more than 1 million, and to rent a decent apartment near Fenghang, the monthly rent is at least 4,000 yuan. After school, Su Wan accompanied Su Rue to leave hand in hand under the strange gazes of a group of onlookers. This was the first time Su Wan felt that Su Rue's hand was particularly big. Well, who let the original owner in this world be a petite school belle, and at the age of 17, it seems that she hasn't grown up yet. Now Su Wan's height can barely reach Su Rue's shoulder. The height difference is really suitable for falling in love. The original owner was very knowledgeable about the high-end apartment near Fenghang, because after Jiang Yu lived in the Su family, Su Wan had been planning to move out, but there was no practical action yet. Now that Su Rue is here, Su Wan doesn't have to hesitate anymore. She directly took Su Rue and Xiao Yuni to find a 2-bedroom apartment that she had already chosen, and then paid the rent for half a year. The apartment is well-equipped and belongs to the type that can be moved in with a bag. Su Wan has never been picky about where to live, and Su Rue has also accompanied Su Wan to live in the apartment several times. This time, although there is a third wheel in the apartment, it is the one that Su Rue is most satisfied with. In the previous 2-bedroom apartment, the two people lived separately, but now? Of course, Xiao Yuni lived in one room, and he and Su Wan lived in the other. Because they had to welcome Su Rue, the three people went to Jiangnan to have a big meal. After eating and drinking, they returned to the apartment. When Su Rue arrived, he only brought a simple salute. Fortunately, in the afternoon, he also bought several sets of clothes for himself and Xiao Yuni and 2 sets of brand new pajamas. However, Su Wan didn't prepare anything. In the evening, she planned to go back to the Su family to pack up first, and then officially move in the next day. But how could General Su let his wife leave? Xiao Wan, I miss you. As soon as they returned to the bedroom, Su Rue hugged Su Wan from behind, and his slender and powerful arms imprisoned her whole body in his broad embrace. Will you stay with me tonight? Oh. Su Wan leaned comfortably in Su Rue's arms. I'll stay with you for a while. There is no pajamas here. It's not convenient to stay here at night, right? If there were only 2 people, it would be fine, but there was still Xiao Yuni living in this house. Because there was only 1 bathroom in the apartment, it was really inconvenient to go out at night. You can wear my new shirt. As Su Rue spoke, he skillfully turned his face to the side and kissed Su Wan's earlobe with his warm lips. He wouldn't admit that he deliberately bought a small men's shirt. Yes. The feeling of being electrocuted made Su Wan couldn't help but groan softly. Su Rue, who was behind her, took the opportunity to raise his hand and tear off Su Wan's school uniform. His right hand slowly moved up and landed on Su Wan's soft shoulder. Wife. In the next second, Su Rue's eyes suddenly turned cold. His cold eyes looked deeply at Su Wan's shoulder. There was a deep red finger mark on her fair shoulder. Although it was already very faint, Su Rue could still tell that it was a new injury today. And the person who did it was an ancient martial arts expert. Who is it? The air in the room seemed to be frozen by ice. Su Rue's fingers gently and tenderly brushed the mark on Su Wan's shoulder. At this moment, the tyranny in his eyes could no longer be controlled. It's okay. It doesn't hurt anymore. Su Wan felt the rising murderous aura on Su Rue's body. She immediately raised her arms gently and turned over to hug Su Rue. This little injury is nothing. I am not a porcelain that will break at a touch. Is it Suyu? Su Rue quickly went through the mission plot in his heart. Because the original Su Wan was just a cannon fodder in Jiang Yu's life, the interpersonal relationships around Su Wan were still simple, and the only person with this ability around her was only Suyu. Hearing Su Rue's question, Su Wan had to nod. It's him. He is very alert and has a little doubt about me, but it is nothing to worry about. It is indeed nothing to worry about. Su Rue lowered his eyes, and a bloodthirsty killing intent flashed through his eyes. All the dead people were nothing to worry about. Wife, you go take a shower first. With a plan in mind, Su Rue took Su Wan's hands off his waist, turned around and handed her the small white shirt he had just bought. I'll pack my things first. I'll take a shower after you're done. Su Wan looked at the shirt that Su Rue threw into her palm that was obviously a size too small. At this time, she did not have time to care about this little thing. Su Rue, what do you want to do? She was not a child. How could she be so easily fooled by him? Be good. Su Rue held Su Wan with one hand and pressed her face against his chest. What can I do? I'm really just packing things. If Suyu was a thing, Su Wan's eyes narrowed. Okay, you. Hurry up. She wanted to tell him to be careful, but when the words came to her mouth, it became hurry up. Since he didn't want her to worry, she sometimes didn't have to expose everything. Su Rue, you have to be careful. Suyu is not easy to deal with. Although she was confident in Su Rue's martial arts, Suyu was also an S-class wanted criminal after all. He was not only proficient in ancient martial arts, but also good at all kinds of guns and poisons. The reason why Su Wan didn't want Su Rue and Suyu to face each other was simply that she didn't want to see Su Rue have any accidents. Just like how Su Rue felt distressed when he saw her injured, she also didn't want Su Rue to be hurt in the slightest. However, Su Wan also knew that once Su Rue decided on something, he would never give up. All she could do was to make him feel at ease. If she couldn't be a help, then remember not to let herself become a burden. I'm going to take a shower. Su Wan tidied up her school uniform and tightened the clothes in her arms. Before leaving the bedroom, she suddenly turned back and rushed to Su Rue. She tiptoed, held his face and kissed him fiercely. You are this young lady's man. Everything you have belongs to this young lady. Without my permission, you are not allowed to lose even a strand of hair. Su Rue, who was suddenly attacked by Su Wan, froze in place. Until Su Wan's back left, he smiled and raised his hand to rub his lips. This girl was really ruthless. That kiss just now was not so much a kiss as a bite. Gently putting down his fingers, the gentleness in Su Rue's eyes gradually faded. He turned to the bedside and picked up the mobile phone that Su Wan threw on the bedside. From the address book, he found Su Yu's phone number and sent him a message. "Where are you? I have something very important to tell you." After the message was sent, the other side quickly replied with a message. The message was very simple, just an address. As the saying goes, a crafty rabbit has 3 burrows. Su Yu had a lot of residences in D-City. Today, because he had a big operation during the day, he directly returned to a high-class apartment near the hospital that he temporarily rented after work. When he received the message from Su Wan, Su Yu had just come out of the bathroom and returned his address. Su Yu sat on the sofa in the living room and poured himself a red wine. He didn't know what Su Wan wanted to say to him, and he didn't need to guess anything. In his opinion, that girl was just a grasshopper jumping around but could be pinched to death by him at any time. Chapter 137. At 7:30 in the evening, it is the time when most families gather around the TV to watch prime time. Su Yu, who is changed into a casual home suit, also turned on the TV in boredom, but his eyes did not fall on the 50-inch LCD monitor in front of him. Su Yu's eyes wandered aimlessly in the room, and it was obvious that he had something on his mind now. The air conditioner has been turned on in the room, and the temperature is 28 degrees, which makes people feel comfortable. Suddenly, Su Yu sat up from the sofa and looked sharply at the vertical air conditioner in the corner. The computer board of the air conditioner still shows 28 degrees, but just for a moment, he felt the coolness from the outside, with the chill of the night wind. Su Yu's hand subconsciously touched his cuff, and a cold scalpel drew a ghastly arc in his palm. This is the weapon that he never leaves his hand, and sometimes it makes him more at ease than gunfire. At this time, only the sound of a family ethics drama played by a TV station could be heard in the living room. The mother-in-law and her daughter-in-law in the drama were quarreling fiercely. Su Yu left the living room quietly. He was like a wandering, lonely soul, leaving no footsteps. Coming to his bedroom, across a door, Su Yu could feel the surging killing intent from there. The other party obviously did not deliberately converge his breath, and even Su Yu suspected that the coldness just now was a signal deliberately released by the other party to him. The comber is not good, and the comber is very strong. Su Yu's eyes condensed, and he slammed open the door of his bedroom. At this moment, the scalpel in his hand had flown toward the bedroom window in a very strange arc. In the dark room, the cold light suddenly appeared. At this time, the bedroom window was open, and there was a cold wind coming in, blowing the curtains on the side. Just in the center of the open window, there was an elegant figure sitting, wearing a simple shirt and trousers. At this time, the night wind blew the hem of his shirt, and his soft chestnut short hair was slightly messy. Su Yu's action was not slow. He locked the other party's breath outside the door. At the moment of opening the door, the scalpel had been thrown out accurately. At this moment, he actually saw the appearance of the other party. It was an elegant and handsome young man. In the darkness, his eyes flashed with a dark light. Facing the scalpel with endless killing intent, Su Rue just carelessly hooked his lips, and in the next breath, his figure had disappeared from the window. In this world, no one can be faster than Su Rue, even Su Yun's scalpel. At the moment when Su Rue disappeared, Su Yu's pupil shrank sharply. He had only seen such skills in one person, and that person was the king of the killer in the dark world. The duel between the killers is often rapid and cruel. At this time, Su Yu had no time to be distracted. At the moment when Su Rue disappeared, Su Yu quickly stood in the east corner of the bedroom. His fingers slammed on the wall, and a box immediately popped out of the wall. The box contained a modified Desert Eagle. Holding the pistol in his hand, Su Yun's lips curved and said in a deep voice, "Su Yun, I will." The sound of footsteps in the darkness was particularly abrupt. A figure slowly emerged from the darkness, like a god of death from hell, And at this moment, this person's face had a strange smile that made people tremble with fear. So you still like to use guns? Su Rue came to Suyu leisurely and didn't seem to mind that he was being pointed at by a pistol. Did the organization send you? Suyu looked at Su Rue, and his eyes became more and more cold and fierce. Do you think I dare not shoot? You can try. Su Rue raised his eyebrows and raised his hands slightly, and the bullets slowly fell from his palms to the floor, making a crisp sound. Oh! Suyu saw Su Rue's fearless appearance and couldn't help but sneer. You are really powerful, but unfortunately, this is my home. During the conversation, Suyu suddenly threw away the pistol in his hand, revealing a miniature remote control in the palm of his hand. The red light on the remote control was flashing, which was particularly dazzling in the darkness. I have installed remote control bombs in the whole room. If you want to perish together, I welcome you at any time. Suyu raised his eyebrows at Su Rue, and his face was full of confidence. Oh, there are bombs? Su Rue's eyes widened exaggeratedly, and then looked at Suyu with a smile. I can find your gun. Are you sure the remote control in your hand is still working? Suyu's face was ugly for the first time. His fingers hesitated slightly. It seemed that he wanted to press the remote control, but he was worried that the bombs would really explode. So everyone in the world actually cherishes their lives, and assassins are no exception. They can ruthlessly harvest the lives of others and treat all the weak as ants, but they cherish their own little life. Don't dare to press it? I'll help you. Su Rue's eyes were cold, and the next moment he appeared in front of Suyu like a ghost, grabbed his hand and pressed the red button. Boom! The violent explosion accompanied by the skyrocketing fire engulfed the entire room in an instant. For the first time, Suyu's face showed a look of surprise. He watched Su Rue pull himself before the fire spread to the windowsill and jumped out from the 8th floor. The direction was not down. His goal turned out to be the rooftop. The fire and the violent explosion have alarmed the entire building and all the pedestrians on the nearby streets. Not long after, there was a continuous siren sound on the streets of the urban area. Why save me? At this time, Suyu stood in the middle of the rooftop and looked at the expressionless young man in front of him, and the expression on his face was somewhat complicated. Now he has to admit that there is always someone better than him. The young man in front of him is not at the same level as himself, and even the king of assassins he knew may not be his opponent. Who said I wanted to save you? Su Rue looked at Suyu in front of him and couldn't help but sink his face. He blew up Suyu's home just for the convenience of dealing with the aftermath. Now Suyu is a dead man, and he was burned to death by the fire. You? Seeing Su Rue's gloomy face approaching step by step, the more and more intense murderous aura made Suyu, who had killed many people, couldn't help but shudder. How many people did the person in front of him kill? Why is there such a heavy murderous aura? Of course, Suyu didn't know what kind of mountain of corpses and sea of blood Su Rue came out from. At this moment, he felt powerless for the first time. The deep sense of powerlessness in the face of an invincible opponent. Now, let's end it all as soon as possible. Su Rue stood in front of Suyu and smiled inexplicably. My wife is still waiting for me to take a bath at home. Suyu. When Su Rue's voice fell, Suyu suddenly made a move. This blow exhausted his full strength at this time and went straight to the death point of Su Rue's chest. At such a close distance, most people can't avoid it, and Su Rue really didn't avoid it. But, crack, when Suyu was about to succeed, his arm was suddenly grabbed by Su Rue. The next moment, Suyu only felt a heart-wrenching pain coming from his arm. His arm was actually broken by Su Rue. Suyu's face darkened a little bit, and the eyes that were still determined to win could only be full of surprise at the moment to look at the person in front of him. You used this hand to hurt my wife? No, maybe it's that one. Su Rue turned his wrist and broke Suyu's other arm in the same way. At this time, Suyu's arms were drooping, and it was obvious that he had lost most of his combat effectiveness. But how could Su Rue let him go so easily? Boom! After lightly kicking Suyu, Su Rue looked at him condescendingly, and his black leather shoes ran over each of Suyu's fingers. Do you think I should chop all your hands and feed them to the dog? Or stew your whole arm and feed it to the dog? Suyu. Can you not be so cruel? Oh, Hearing the sound of the fire engine downstairs getting closer and closer, Su Rue suddenly whispered in annoyance. I think I wasted a lot of time. If I go back late, my wife will be angry. Do you know how to coax her when she is angry? Speaking of this, Su Rue suddenly bent down and stared strangely at Suyu, who had fallen to the ground and vomited blood. I'm going to write her a love letter, a blood letter. With that, Su Rue's palm turned over, and a scalpel with a cold light had appeared in his palm. This is the weapon that Suyu has carried for many years. I'm going to bleed you dry and write a 1,000-word love letter. Then, I'm going to use this knife to cut off your flesh piece by piece, break your tendons, and pick off your bones. Then, I'm going to put them in a Ziploc and bring them to the alley to feed the wild dogs. Suyu. Who can tell him where this madman came from? You. Who the hell are you? At this time, Su Rue had begun to bleed Suyu with a scalpel. Suyu, who had done surgery and killed people all his life, felt the sadness and despair of those weak people facing death for the first time. Who are you? This may be the only thing he wants to know at this moment. Oh, hee. Su Rue just smiled and looked at the blood on the blade. His eyes were scarlet and scary. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is you. You hurt the lover I care about most. Chapter 138. When Su Rue returned to the apartment from outside, he had changed his clothes from head to toe. Don't ask General Su how he did it. He wouldn't tell you even if you asked. Opening the bedroom door, not surprisingly, Su Wan was sitting on the bed. She had changed into the white men's shirt. Seeing Su Rue come back, Su Wan suddenly stood up. A pair of snow-white straight legs almost dazzled Su Rue's eyes. You're back? Su Wan's eyes looked up and down at Su Rue. Seeing that his complexion was very good and his body didn't seem to be injured, Su Wan heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Waiting for me? At this time, Su Rue had already restrained his murderous aura. In front of Su Wan, he was always the man who would only smile gently at her. Slowly walking to Su Wan, Su Rue raised his hand and rubbed Su Wan's long hair. Why didn't you take a bath? Her hair was dry and didn't look like she had just washed it not long ago. Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wan lowered her eyes and her tone was a little weak. If you don't come back, who will help me take a bath? You are, but you are being covered by this Lady Wu. Su Rue's kiss blocked Su Wan's words. He kissed her hard and carried Su Wan's whole body with both hands at the same time, turning to leave the bedroom and walking towards the bathroom. In the bathroom, warm water constantly flowed out of the shower. Su Rue held the shampoo in one hand and gently rubbed Su Wan's long hair with the other. The plentiful foam flowed along her waterfall-like black hair and onto her back, leaving white traces on Su Wan's fair and smooth back. It looked especially seductive. Wife, you're so beautiful. Su Rue couldn't help but kiss Su Wan's hair. Su Wan's cheeks, which were flushed by the water vapor, couldn't help but become redder. Su Rue, do you want it? Although she didn't ask about Su Yu's ending, Su Wan felt that Su Yu had completely disappeared from this world now since Su Rue made a move. Even if Su Rue tried his best to restrain himself, he, who had just killed someone, would inevitably be stained with a trace of blood. Su Wan remembered that there was a saying, unable to repay, I can only repay with my body. She had always used all her strength to love Su Rue, but most of the time, she felt that she didn't give enough because Su Rue never needed her to do anything for him. He didn't need anything else. He just needed her to love him well, and that would be enough. Facing this kind of lover, Su Wan felt that she really had reached the point where she couldn't repay him, wife. Su Rue helped Su Wan wash her hair and tightly hugged her under the shower. Men are animals that can't control their lower bodies, especially in front of their most beloved woman. But, let's sleep after you're done. Su Rue whispered in Su Wan's ear. Many men liked youthful and even immature bodies, but Su Rue knew his own situation. As long as that person was Su Wan, he wouldn't be able to control his strength and would easily hurt her. And this body in this world clearly couldn't withstand his brutal torment. Therefore, in this world, General Su was determined to be an ascetic. General Su didn't think that it would be too late to eat a good meal. He would wait for the next world to find it and whatnot. After taking a bath, Su Rue helped Su Wan dry her hair. The two people lay on the bed and hugged each other tightly to sleep. On the first night in this world, they all slept very sweetly and steadily. The next day happened to be the weekend. Suwon originally wanted to go to bed with Su-Rue and sleep in bed. As a result, early in the morning, there was a weak knock from Xiao Yuni outside the bedroom door. Eldest brother? Big sister-in-law? Are you up? Xiao Yuni was not used to the strange title of sister-in-law, but he did not reject Suwon at all. The person who could invite him to a big meal must not be a bad person. Yes, that's the case. Xiao Yuni, do you want to die? Su-Rue's murderous roar came from the room. Xiao Yuni outside the door subconsciously shrank his shoulders, blinked his big eyes and looked at the people around him pitifully. Jiang Yu, look, brother Xiao, Xiao Wan, it's me. Jiang Yu cleared her throat and shouted at the door. Last night, Suwon didn't return all night, which naturally made Su Haiqing very dissatisfied, and Jiang Yu was afraid that Su Haiqing would vent his anger on the Xiao brothers who were with Suwon. So she took the initiative to confess about Suwon and Xiao Qi's relationship. Su Haiqing, who learned of this, was naturally furious. For Suwon and a man she just met and didn't know the details, and even went out to rent a house together, in Su Haiqing's view, this is absolutely not self-respect. It's self-abandonment. She is deliberately indulging herself. Su Haiqing, who was furious, immediately used his connections to find out the address of Suwon's rented house. Originally, he was going to bring people here last night, but Su Yu's apartment suddenly exploded. Because Su Yu's parents died early, his only relative in D-City was Su Haiqing. After such a big thing happened, Su Haiqing could only put Suwon's affairs aside for the time being. Su Haiqing didn't return all night because he was dealing with Su Yu's affairs. Taking advantage of today's holiday, Jiang Yu took the money from Wenshu and went straight here. The person in the bedroom was silent for a long time after hearing Jiang Yu's voice. When Jiang Yu waited outside the door for a long time and couldn't help but want to speak again, the bedroom door was finally opened from the inside. What's the matter? Su-Rue was wearing pajamas and looked at Jiang Yu outside the door with an unkind face. Jiang Yu looked at Su-Rue's pajamas and glanced at the messy big bed in the room. Brother Xiao, you and Xiao Wan, together. If he doesn't sleep with me, does he sleep with you? Su Wan, who had just changed her clothes, walked out from behind Su-Rue, holding Su-Rue's arm while looking at Jiang Yu with a mocking face. Hearing Su Wan's words, Jiang Yu's face immediately became very embarrassed. Xiao Wan, I am your sister. How can you say that? Obviously, our pure and clean female lead Darren couldn't accept Su Wan's blatant ridicule. In this regard, Su Wan can only chuckle. Able to play ambiguously with a large group of men, and finally able to play with the NPC Mary Sue female lead Darren, you are really pure to the point of breaking through the sky. Sister? I don't have a sister. Suwon couldn't help but coldly say to Jiang Yu. How did you find this place? Did you tell my dad about me and Xiaoqi? With Jiang Yu's brain, she absolutely can't find Suwon's current address. In the Su family, only Su Haiqing can do this. Hearing Suwon mention Su Haiqing, Jiang Yu suddenly remembered the purpose of her trip. Xiao Wan, brother Xiao, my dad already knows about you. He can't get away from something now. When he comes back, he will definitely come to trouble you. With that said, Jiang Yu hurriedly took out a bank card from her bag. Brother Xiao, there is 100,000 yuan here. If it is not enough, I will remit it to you later. If you have something to do at home, go back first. Don't stay here any longer. It will be dangerous. Oh. Hearing Jiang Yu's words, Su-Rue couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and clamped the bank card into his hand with 2 fingers. Uncle Su knows about me and Xiao Wan? Jiang Yu, you told him, right? Why are you pretending to be a good person here now? No, I'm not. I'm just afraid that Dad will hurt you. I didn't mean it. Hearing Su-Rue's cold words, Jiang Yu, who felt that she was once again misunderstood by Brother Xiao, desperately wanted to explain. But the more anxious she was, the more speechless she became. Jiang Yu, you didn't do anything on purpose. You are always innocent. It's not you who is wrong. It's the whole world. Is this okay? Suwon really didn't want to continue to waste her time with the female lead Darren. She couldn't help but step forward and push away Jiang Yu, who was blocking the door, and then proudly strode towards the living room. I'm hungry. Shao Qi, you go cook? Got it. As soon as Su Rue heard his wife's order, he immediately put away his cold face and strode towards the kitchen with a smile. He wants to thank Xiao Yuni, thank the dead father Xiao. If it weren't for Father Xiao who killed his wife and tormented himself to death, the Xiao brothers would not have become orphans. Xiao Qi, who became an orphan, had to carry a burden, Xiao Yuni, with him all the time. And this burden was also a foodie. Therefore, thanks to the blessing of Xiao's father and Xiao Yuni, Xiao Qi began to earn his own living since he was a child, and he also practiced very good cooking skills. Chapter 139. Su Yu's death was finally officially classified as a gas explosion. What Su Haiqing received was only a pile of ashes that could not be identified. He did not doubt anything about Su Yu's death. After all, Su Yu had always hidden himself very well. Su Haiqing always thought that his nephew was just a doctor with profound medical skills. In a place that Su Haiqing could not reach, at the Interpol headquarters, the bounty for the killer codenamed Scorpion was withdrawn overnight, and the bounty was transferred to a secret account in Huaxia on the same day. Well, this is the bounty, the first money that General Su has earned in this world, a reward of $1 million. It turned out that Su Yu's life was only worth this much money. General Su was very dissatisfied with this. Playing with the encrypted version of the communicator that was taken from Su Yu's home, Su Rue's eyes flashed again and again. Do I get more bounties by taking over the entire killer organization? Or simply join the organization instead of Su Yu, and take on tasks in the organization to earn more task gold? This is really a difficult choice. For General Su's entanglement, Su Wan only wanted to say one sentence. All the bonuses will be confiscated and confiscated. A man who doesn't give all the money to his wife is not a good man, of course. The financial power of the family should be handed over to my wife. Su Rue naturally did not hesitate to hand over his bounty, and Xiao Yuni, who had seen his elder brother and sister-in-law on the sofa for a whole day, finally couldn't help but raise a hand weakly. Elder brother, can I speak? People who are ignored can only use this method to find a sense of existence. And, as soon as he heard Xiao Yuni's voice, Su Rue immediately looked up at him. Yuni, do you want money too? Su Rue didn't hate his nominal younger brother. If he really wanted money, Su Rue would never refuse. No, no. Hearing his elder brother's words, Xiao Yuni immediately waved his hand desperately. Then he raised the phone in his hand in front of Su Rue and shook it. The baby face showed a rare serious expression. Elder brother, Director Chi has called more than a dozen times, asking us to go back and finish the part, or we will be charged for breach of contract. Only then did Su Rue recall that he left a film crew. It seemed like this film crew was a huge production worth hundreds of millions, and the penalty for breach of contract wasn't small. Thinking of this, Su Rue lowered his eyes, his fingers subconsciously circling Su Wan's hair. Wife, what do you think? You have to listen to your wife's arrangements for everything. General Su, you are a proper slave to your wife. Yuni, you go back. Su Wan, who was lying on Su Rue's legs, didn't even lift her eyelids and replied without hesitation. Xiao Yuni, hey, this cute thing is being despised by my sister-in-law. She must be despised, right? As expected, it's shameful to be a third wheel. Hearing Su Wan's words, Xiao Yuni felt sad, but Su Rue on the sofa suddenly brightened his eyes. Forgive him for being full of his wife these days and forgetting the life trajectory of other people in this world. According to the mission plot that Su Rue knows, the Xiao brothers will always develop in the entertainment circle, and it is the movie that is being filmed now that will make Xiao Yuni famous overnight. In the original plot, during the shooting of this movie, the actor who played the third male lead had a serious car accident halfway through the shooting of the film and could not continue to complete the shooting. At that time, Director Chi couldn't find a suitable actor with a schedule. At this time, Xiao Qi took the initiative to recommend his brother, because Xiao Yuni happened to be the stand-in for the third male lead at that time. Originally, the famous Director Chi would not notice this unknown stunt double, who only showed his back in front of the camera. This time, he really had no choice but to agree to let Xiao Yuni try a few scenes. As a result, when Xiao Yuni changed his style and came out of the dressing room, all the partners on the set were shocked. This baby face, Was it specially made for the third male lead of this movie? It was simply a god's restoration. Director Chi decided to replace Xiao Yuni on the spot, and Xiao Yuni, who had been a stand-in for many years, did not have stage fright in front of the camera. The two sides cooperated very happily for the first time. When this blockbuster was released at the end of the year, most of the audience went to see it because of the famous director's big production and the leading actors of the Heavenly King and Heavenly Queen. This movie, called The Chaos of the Imperial Capital, described a treacherous palace change. The first male lead, as the Crown Prince, strategized the country, and the second male lead, as the second prince, was also ruthless and cunning. However, in the end, the audience was moved by the sixth prince, who had the least number of scenes. For the first time, he was wrapped in a furry snow-white fox fur, coupled with the innocent baby face, which made people feel pity at first sight. He was the son of a palace maid and was bullied in the imperial city, but he wore a bright smile every day. Such an innocent and lovely little fresh meat, who always surrounded the crown prince and softly called Brother Crown Prince, quickly captured the hearts of most female audiences. However, the next plot took a sharp turn. The Eastern Palace caught fire in the middle of the night, and the Crown Prince was assassinated in the palace. When the female lead came to escort the emperor and used a long sword to lift the assassin's mask, everyone was dumbfounded. The sixth prince, dressed in black, still had a baby face, but at this moment, his eyes were indifferent without a trace of humanity. "Brother Crown Prince, are you in pain?" It was still that soft voice, but at this moment, when it came out of his mouth, it was so cold as ice. Brothers killing each other. This was the sorrow of the royal family. Just when many people felt sorry for this character, the sixth prince gave everyone another surprise when the movie was about to end. At this time, the second prince's rebel army had already arrived at the city. He controlled all the forces of the crown prince. He thought that this time he could break into the imperial city in one fell swoop. But in the middle of the night, the fire was bright, and a large group of troops suddenly rushed in from all directions. The person who rushed with this group of reinforcements was not someone else, but the sixth prince, who should have been imprisoned by the crown prince in the imperial clan court. Under the light of the fire, the young man's face showed a serious expression for the first time. He said, "Second imperial brother, just admit defeat. From the beginning, you lost, because you don't have the heart of a king." This palace change, which had many twists and turns, finally ended with the crown prince successfully ascending to the throne and marrying the female lead. But when they came out of the cinema, almost all the female audience cried until their eyes were red. Poor little six. Director, screenwriter, give me back my sixth prince. It turned out that in the big ending, the second prince, who was forced into a corner, directly ordered people to capture the female lead in order to threaten the crown prince. And at such a critical moment of life and death, it was the sixth prince who bravely stepped forward. In the end, although he successfully rescued the female lead, the sixth prince also died tragically under the second prince's sword. At that scene, blood dyed his innocent and pure face red. The young man just looked at the person beside him seriously, smiled and raised his hand. Since he was young, he was a cold prince who was not loved by anyone. His birth was a mistake. He smiled every day, but he pretended to be strong. In fact, his heart was very closed, very lonely. And in these years, only one person really gave his family warmth. Let him know the true meaning of family. That person was his brother, the crown prince. Finally, at the end of his life, he smiled and closed his eyes in his brother's arms. In the next life, let's still be brothers, okay? In this world, it is not only love that can make people live and die together. The imperial capital chaos made the role of the sixth prince become popular overnight. Almost all the female audiences who have seen this film can't help but complain in their own blogs and circle of friends. The female lead, this kind of creature is really annoying, isn't it? You used to be as fearless as a female King Kong. Why did you become a little white flower without the strength to truss a chicken at the critical moment? Of course, it's not your fault to be caught, but it's your fault to kill our sixth highness. The female audience's complaints are powerful, and the power of female fans is also infinite. Xiao Yuni became famous overnight, and soon became the most irresistible star in the entertainment circle with a brilliant feat. In fact, Su Rue knows best. The so-called acting skills, do you expect him, the nominal brother, to have it? The first time he acted in a movie, he encountered this role. In fact, Xiao Yuni, who was spoiled by his brother since he was a child, said that he has always been playing himself. Okay, brother. At this time, Xiao Yuni saw that his elder brother had been silent, and the expression on his face was strange. He couldn't help but worry and continued to say, "In fact, I can go back, I can do it alone." In fact, he was very afraid to say it, but as a good brother in China, he couldn't let his elder brother be embarrassed. Suddenly feeling that he was so sensible, Xiao Yuni really wanted to give himself 32 likes. Su Rue. Come on, what are you imagining again? Yuni, it's settled. I will call Director Qi, and, forget it, let's talk about it later. Su Rue wanted to remind Xiao Yuni that if something happened to the crew, he should give him a message as soon as possible. For example, the third male lead had a car accident, but Su Rue thought about it and did not mention it. If Xiao Yuni can enter the entertainment circle without him this time, that is his destiny. And if he loses these opportunities, it doesn't matter. After shooting this movie, Su Rue will not let him be a stunt double. They are not short of money now, and there will be more money in the future. He can afford to raise this younger brother. In the end, Xiao Yuni could only obediently pack his bag and leave. When they were separated at the airport, although a certain foodie always thought that there were chicken legs on the plane and the chicken legs were delicious, his eyes were still red involuntarily. From childhood to adulthood, he has never been separated from his brother. His brother was his closest person, and Xiao Yuni, who lost his parents when he was a child, in his eyes, his brother was not only a brother, but also played the role of a father and a mother, working hard to raise him. Although later he met his adoptive father and the life of the brothers was much better, in Xiao Yuni's heart, his brother's position will always be irreplaceable. Leaving the airport, looking at the plane that had just taken off in midair, Su Wan shook Su Rue's big hand. Don't worry, he will be fine. He should have his own way. We can't always accompany him. Entering the mission world and entering other people's lives, every agent will be more or less affected by the feelings of the original owner. The Xiao brothers depended on each other, and the deep feelings between the brothers made Su Rue unable to help but envy them. Yes, this child in the future will be very happy. Su Rue smiled and clenched Su Wan's palm. Let's go back. The two took a taxi back to the rented apartment. When they went upstairs, before they reached the door of the apartment, Su Rue's expression changed. The door of the apartment was opened, and now there was someone in the room. Su Wan on the side obviously felt a trace of abnormality. When she came to the door of her home, Su Wan hesitated, but still slowly opened the door. On the sofa facing the door, there was a tall and majestic figure sitting. Seeing Su Wan's face, the man's eyes narrowed, and a complex anger flashed across his face. "Dad, you are here." Su Wan hadn't even entered the door when she called out in a low voice. Chapter 140. In the past few years, Su Haicheng has been struggling in the business world of D-City. He has been accustomed to the deception and greed among his opponents. He has long cultivated a unique businessman temperament. At this moment, although Su Haicheng was just sitting quietly on the sofa, he still looked powerful without being angry, and his momentum was astonishing. Hearing Su Wan's call, Su Haicheng's eyes narrowed and he couldn't help but snort coldly, "Humph. You still know that I am your father?" Su Wan was somewhat innocent. Su Wan bit her lip. Su Rue, who had been standing behind her, heard Su Haicheng's obviously unkind tone, but his eyes narrowed and he looked at Su Haicheng coldly. Perhaps General Su's eyes were too sharp, and Su Haicheng immediately noticed it. The eyes of the two men collided. Su Haicheng, who wanted to give Su Rue a show of strength, was gradually defeated under Su Rue's very sharp eyes. This young man's aura was too strong. Su Haicheng put away his contempt for the first time and quietly observed the young man behind his daughter. He was wearing a decent casual suit at the door, and his short hair was also neat and tidy. People like Su Haicheng never look at people by their appearance, but by their bearing and behavior. Almost at the first glance of careful observation, Su Haicheng's heart was shocked. The feeling that the young man in front of him gave him was too shocking. Su Haiqing asked himself that he had also seen countless people, but like this young man, he would be defeated with just one glance, and every posture had a natural elegance and nobility. Su Haiqing had only seen such a person once from a distance, and the person he saw that time was the real young master of Siju City. Could it be that something went wrong somewhere? Zhang Yu clearly told him that this young man named Xiao Qi was just a stunt double from a martial arts class. You are Xiao Qi? Involuntarily, Su Haiqing frowned and asked. Su Rui raised his eyebrows and nodded casually. I am Xiao Qi, first time meeting. Hello, Uncle Su. Hello. When Su Haiqing heard Su Rui's words, he was forced by Su Rui's powerful aura and subconsciously nodded at him. Of course, at this moment, Su Haiqing's first impression of Su Rui had indeed improved a lot. At least at this time, General Su's bearing was 100 times stronger than the image of a phoenix man he imagined. However, even so, he couldn't watch his daughter mess around with this person. Since you call me uncle, I will call you Little Xiao. Little Xiao, I heard from Zhang Yu that you just arrived in D City. Have you found a job? The old fox was indeed an old fox. When the two of them entered the door, Su Haiqing obviously put on a posture of questioning. Now that he saw that he couldn't suppress General Su's aura, Su Haiqing immediately changed his tactical strategy. When Su Rui heard Su Haiqing's question, the coldness on his face lessened a lot. The feeling of being picked on by his father-in-law made General Su feel pretty good. I don't want to find a job for the time being. I plan to start my own business. Start my own business? He's so young, but he's so arrogant. Su Haiqing squinted his eyes and smiled. Young people nowadays are so motivated. However, with only 200,000 startup funds, it's still very difficult to make a name for yourself in D City. This was the art of a businessman's speech. Su Haiqing knew that his two daughters had given Su Rui 100,000 yuan each, but he didn't point it out. He just said it in such a way. First, he was sarcastic that Su Rui had to rely on women to start his own business. Second, there was more probing elements. If you want money, just say a number. As long as it's a problem that money can solve, it's not a problem. Uncle Su must be joking. Hearing Su Haiqing's words, Su Rui also smiled. 200,000 yuan is not enough for me to buy a dress for my family's Xiao Wan. As he said this, Su Rui couldn't help but stop Su Wan's shoulder with one hand. Regardless of her father still watching, he smiled and moved closer to Su Wan's face. Wife, am I right? Su Wan blinked at Su Rui, took out a bank card before Su Haiqing got angry and handed it to Su Haiqing. Dad, here's 70,000 yuan. You take it back and return it to Zhang Yu. We won't take the extra money. Xiao Qi has his own money. He won't use our Su family's money. And Su Haiqing, who was angered by Su Rui's frivolous behavior just now, looked at Su Wan with a sullen face. Rich? How much money can he give you? Xiao Wan, you are still young. You don't know how sinister people are in this world. Xiao Qi, I see that you are also a talent. Let's not beat around the bush. What price do you want me to pay before you are willing to let my daughter go? She is still in school. She can't afford to play with you. At this time, Su Haiqing couldn't pretend to be elegant. He couldn't let the daughter he had painstakingly raised be cheated by a white-eyed wolf. Hearing Su Haiqing's words, Su Rui's gaze also turned cold. He took a slight step forward, stared at Su Haiqing's face, and his sexy lips curled up into a somewhat strange arc. I don't know, Uncle Su. What is the total value of your Su's enterprise? Hearing Su Rui's question, Su Haiqing couldn't help but suddenly stand up from the sofa. Young man, don't be greedy. The entire Su's assets are over 100 million. It's not something you can eat in one bite. So, Uncle Su, you are a billionaire. Hearing Su Haiqing's words, Su Rui still showed a faint smile on his face. Since Uncle Su loves Xiao Wan so much, for her happiness, so what if you lose hundreds of millions? Or in your heart, she can't compare to your business and your wealth at all? Money or feelings, which is more important? Su Rui unconsciously switched his position with Su Haiqing. It should be said that from beginning to end, Su Rui was in control of the rhythm of this conversation. At this time, hearing Su Rui's question, Su Haiqing's expression suddenly changed. He realized that he had unknowingly fallen into this kid's language trap. If he answered that Su Wan was more important than Su Clan, then he would take the opportunity to demand an exorbitant price. And if he answered that Su Clan was more important, he would also achieve the vicious purpose of provoking the relationship between himself and his daughter. Su Haiqing, who has also experienced countless negotiations in the business world, quickly calmed down and looked at the young man in front of him. After all, he still underestimated him. Xiao Qi, it doesn't make any sense for you to sow discord like this. Xiao Wan is my daughter, and my property will also be hers in the future. Su Haiqing smiled at Su Rui and whispered. Su Haiqing, who thought he had seen the other party's true colors, was just waiting for Su Rui to state the final price, and then bargain. Unfortunately, Su Rui would never play according to the routine imagined by Su Haiqing. Uncle Su, I heard that Jiang Yu is also your daughter. Even if you leave all your assets to your two daughters, our family's Xiao Wan will only get half. What you can give her is nothing more than this and I. Su Rui raised his eyebrows and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him with an exceptionally serious gaze for the first time. Within a year, after Xiao Wan reaches adulthood, I will use 100 Su clans as a betrothal gift. I want everyone in D-City to know that in my heart, the entire Su clan is not even worth 1% of Xiao Wan. 100 Su clans were tens of billions of funds. Hearing Su Rui boasting such a big mouth, Su Haiqing instinctively wanted to refute, but at this moment, Su Rui's eyes suddenly became dark and deep. The sudden oppressive gaze made Su Haiqing swallow the words that were on the tip of his mouth. Good, good, good. Since you dare to boast this big mouth, let's wait and see. In the end, Su Haiqing could only leave this harsh sentence and turned to leave with a face full of anger. Staring at his departing back, Su Wan couldn't help but turn to look at Su Rui beside her. Are you going to rob a bank? Wife, that's a crime. Su Rui couldn't help but raise his hand and rub Su Wan's hair. His wife's hair was comfortable to touch, and he personally washed it, and it was still fragrant now. Thinking of this, Su Rui's gaze couldn't help but change again. Wife, Uni is also gone. I'll help you bathe again tonight. Okay? You haven't told me what you're going to do. Don't change the subject. Su Rui took the encrypted communicator that Su Yu used to contact the killer organization. Su Wan knew about this. At the same time, she also knew that Su Rui would not say something that he couldn't do. Since he said it in front of Su Haiqing today, then he would definitely be able to get the money within a year. Now Su Wan was just worried that Su Rui would use some extreme methods. It was just a task. She didn't want Su Rui to work too hard. Well, seeing Su Wan's unforgiving look, General Su had to smile mysteriously. Wife, don't worry. I have a sense of propriety in doing things. Who would rob a bank now? It's too weak, okay? General Su never thought that he was a person who relied on violence to solve problems. He was a high IQ brain worker, okay? Wife, am I such a violent person in your heart? Su Rui put on a pitiful look again and looked at Su Wan full of resentment. In any case, I also went to the research institute and was a person who did a PhD. A cultured person can't easily beat and kill. A gentleman uses his mouth and not his hands. Don't make a move? Ghost. General Su, who was numb to killing people, could say this. Su Wan was also drunk, but when she heard Su Rui mention the research institute, her eyes also flashed. Indeed, the more mission worlds they entered, the more skills the mission enforcers mastered. But the research institute that studies the zombie virus and destroys the balance of this world will be obliterated, okay? You. Su Wan still wanted to say something, but Su Rui beside her smiled and made a silent gesture at her. Wife, do you believe me? If you believe me, just leave everything to me. Okay. Su Wan nodded. She naturally believed in Su Rui. In this world, other than herself, there was only this man who could make her trust and rely on him so unreservedly. Seeing Su Wan nod, the corner of Su Rui's lips curled up again. What was the most lacking in this world? What was the most in demand? There were actually a lot of ways to accumulate a huge amount of wealth in a short period of time, and Su Rui's mind just happened to have a high-tech that was very suitable for this world, Ling Xin MMORPG. Another world's TX company spent hundreds of billions to create the world's first holographic MMORPG. All the technical cores of this game existed in Su Rui's mind. Why did the future Su Rue want to develop Su Xiaosu? Why did he connect Su Xiaosu's data to the Ling Shan virtual world? Technology changes life. Chapter 141. After a short weekend, Suwon had to go back to Fenghang to go to school, and Su Rue also took a small amount of startup funds from Suwon and planned to open a network technology studio in D-City. School days are particularly boring. In the mission plot that Suwon knows, there are not many scenes about school, but now that she has become a member of this world, she has to report to school on time every day. In fact, Suwon initially planned to leave school to speculate on her own, but since she knew that Su Rue had become Xiaoqi, she had to change her strategy. In order not to cause unnecessary trouble for Su Rue, Suwon felt that it was not a big deal to be a high school student for the time being. The female lead Darren Jiangyu will still pester Suwon every day, trying to touch her cold and heartless heart with her sisterly love. Of course, her idea is good, but unfortunately, Suwon doesn't want to see her at all, okay? Every time she has a relationship with Jiangyu, she will encounter a group of brainless flower protectors, which makes Suwon annoyed. Brothers, don't you know that your family's Jiangyu is a martial arts master? Do you think I can beat her? Every time we meet, you vicious woman. How dare you bully Jiangyu? You're dead. To look at me, even if you don't find it annoying, I find it annoying. Suwon. On this day, Suwon had just sneaked back to the classroom from the physical education class to take a nap, but she was stopped in the corridor. And, because the voice that stopped her sounded a bit familiar, Suwon couldn't help but stop and look back. What appeared in front of her was a particularly elegant figure. He was not wearing the same school uniform, but a limited edition casual suit handmade by a foreign master. It seems that there is only one person who can be so arrogant in Fenghang. Ouyang Luo? Suwon found such a wonderful person in the memory of the original owner, Principal Ouyang's grandson, Ouyang family's eldest young master, Ouyang Luo, who has always boasted of being an elegant noble son. In the entire Fenghang, he is the only one who doesn't wear a school uniform, just to show his so-called elegant demeanor. Hearing Suwon calling his name directly, Ouyang Luo's handsome face sank. Suwon, not everyone's name can be called by you. Who do you think you are? In the entire Fenghang, if Luo Yu was a scholarly idol that everyone worshipped collectively, then Ouyang Luo was like an unattainable emperor. He could do whatever he wanted in this school. He was the dream lover of countless girls, and everyone had to call him Young Master Luo when they saw him. He was such a young master. On the surface, he looked cold and elegant, but in reality, he was a weirdo who was extremely lacking in love. Seeing Ouyang Luo looking at her with contempt, Suwon was speechless. Young master, should I kneel on the ground and weep bitterly, begging you to forgive us mortals for our fish lips? Who do you think you are? Towards a certain Shinibyu, Suwon decided to ignore him. Therefore, under Ouyang Luo's expression of you quickly come and admit your wrongs. After you admit your wrongs, I won't forgive you. Suwon calmly turned around and left. Suwon. Looking at Suwon's departing back, Ouyang Luo clenched his fists fiercely. Originally, when he met Suwon today, he wanted to teach her a lesson so that she wouldn't always go against Jiangyu. He didn't expect her to dare to ignore him. Does she really think that she is the eldest miss of the Su family? Isn't she just a fake? It is true that regarding Suwon's identity, even if the Su family has the intention to conceal it, the big families in D-City have their own information channels. Since Ouyang Luo fell in love with Jiangyu at first sight in the corridor, he immediately sent someone to investigate Jiangyu's life experience. Then Suwon's true life experience also surfaced. Jiangyu is the real daughter of the Su family, and Suwon is just the child of a village woman. After knowing about this, Ouyang Luo appreciated Jiangyu even more, and naturally, he hated Suwon more and more. As the real daughter of the Su family, her elder sister kept begging, and she, the fake, really dared to put on airs? What a shameless, lowly person. Such a person is not worthy to be Jiangyu's elder sister, let alone continue to stay in the Su family. Suwon still didn't know that Ouyang Luo had decided to help Jiangyu expel her, that inferior person, from the Su family. Of course, even if she knew, Suwon wouldn't care. Oh, our family's little angel Jiangyu is so hot that everyone loves her. attracting countless talents to bow down to her. Suwon also knew that this group of men would start to deal with her. She just waited to see the move, and she didn't want to waste her brain cells to think about the rest. A boring day slowly passed in the troublemaking and malice of various flower protectors. Because Suwon's online studio has gradually entered the right track, Suwon returned to the apartment alone after school in recent days, and today was no exception. Miss. As soon as she left the school gate, Suwon saw a familiar figure. Su family's driver, Uncle Lu. Uncle Lu, you came to pick up that person from school? Uncle Lu was also an old man of the Su family. He was an honest man with a particularly good character. Uncle Lu had been responsible for picking up Suwon since she started primary school. So when she saw Uncle Lu, Suwon's tone was still gentle. Miss, sir told me to take you and Miss Jiang Yu back, madam. Madam misses you. Speaking of when Uncle Lu's expression was a little complicated. Eldest miss, madam really misses you. You should go back and see her. Since Suyu was gone, no one had specially taken care of Shu's body. Her sick and weak body would not last long. When Suwon thought of the kind and gentle woman who didn't have much time left, she couldn't help but sigh. Seeing that Jiang Yu and Luo Yu had come from behind, Suwon quickly got into the front passenger seat. Uncle Lu, I'm going back. Seeing Suwon get in the car, Uncle Lu finally comforted her with a smile. He saw the eldest miss grow up since she was a child. Although her temper was a little bad, she has always been a good filial child, which Uncle Lu knew. At this time, Luo Yu and Jiang Yu had also walked to the door. From the corner of his eyes, he saw Suwon getting into the car. Luo Yu's eyes were cold, and he turned to see Jiang Yu with a happy face. Luo Yu couldn't help but pull her hand. Jiang Yu, be careful. Suwon came back to Su family today. Maybe she will do something? No, Xiaowon is finally willing to go home. Mom and Dad will be very happy to see her, and I am also very happy today. Luo Yu, I told you a long time ago, I will definitely be able to move her, right? At this time, Jiang Yu, who felt that she had exchanged her unremitting efforts for sisterly feelings, couldn't help but smile brightly at Luo Yu in front of her. Just 3 days ago, the two officially confirmed their relationship. Although Jiang Yu had always refused in the face of Luo Yu's pressure at first, but later seeing Suwon and Xiao Qi together, Jiang Yu's previous psychological burden of taking someone else's love was no longer there. So now when she faced Luo Yu again, she couldn't help but be attracted to him. In the end, she followed her heart and chose to be with Luo Yu. Well, if something happens to you at home, remember to call me. Luo Yu has been accustomed to Jiang Yu's kind and beautiful side, and he couldn't bear to hit her, so he had to shake her little hand again and reluctantly bid farewell to his lover. Seeing that Jiang Yu also sat in the car, Uncle Lu, who was standing next to the car, nodded respectfully to Luo Yu, then returned to the car and started the car. As soon as Suwon got on the car, she leaned on the front passenger seat and pretended to take a nap. When the car started, she also turned on the CD in the car. Jiang Yu, who was behind her, tentatively called her a few times. Seeing that Suwon did not respond, she could only gloomily hang her head and be silent. Melodious music reverberated in the car, which was the original owner's favorite song. It seemed that there were still people in the Su family who did not forget her existence during the time she was not around. Returning to the Sujia villa that she hadn't seen for a long time, Suwon opened her eyes before the car entered the courtyard. Seeing the unfamiliar car parked in the courtyard, Suwon's gaze changed slightly. Uncle Lu, is there a guest at home? And Uncle Lu then saw the cars that Suwon was referring to. Seeing the license plate number of the car, Uncle Lu's expression also changed. Eldest miss, that's old Dr. Gua's car. It shouldn't be. Madam she. Without waiting for Uncle Lu to finish, Suwon quickly jumped out of the car. Xiaowon, wait for me. Jiang Yu also followed closely behind Suwon. When the two people entered the villa, the whole villa was filled with a tense and depressing atmosphere. Suwon quickly went up to the second floor and came to the door of Shu's room. At this time, Su Haiqing was standing at the door of the room with bloodshot eyes and kept pacing. Dad, how is my mother? Xiaowon, you're back, your mother? Su Haiqing did not feel happy about his daughter's return at this time. He thought of his beloved wife whose life and death were uncertain, and his eyes were full of sorrow. Since your cousin died in an accident, your mother's health has been getting worse day by day. I have invited old Gua, a master of traditional Chinese medicine, to come and see your mother in person. Old Gua's acupuncture is famous both at home and abroad. I hope he can wake your mother up from her coma. Just half an hour ago, Su Haiqing was still in a meeting at the company. As a result, he received a call from the family servant and the news that when Shu was unconscious. Learning that his beloved wife suddenly fell into a coma, he immediately drove back and directly asked someone to pick up old Gua. But until now, old Gua was still inside for treatment. Su Haiqing had no way of knowing what was going on with Wen Shu. Unconscious? Hearing Su Haiqing's words and glancing at the closed bedroom door, Su Wan couldn't help but retreat to the side, took out her mobile phone and called Su Rue. You come to me immediately. I will send you the address. After hanging up the phone, Su Wan directly sent the address of the Su family to Su Rue. Seeing Su Wan talking on the side, Zhang Yu couldn't help but look at her. Xiao Wan, who are you calling? None of your business. Su Wan glared at Zhang Yu, simply stood on the other side of the door, leaned against the wall, lowered her eyes, and stared at her feet in a daze. Su Haiqing, who has long been anxious, is not in the mood to adjust the contradiction between his two daughters. He still kept drawing circles at the bedroom door, but Zhang Yu seemed to want to open her mouth to say something, but a ringing phone interrupted her. It was Luo Yu's phone call. Obviously, Luo Yu had been worried about Zhang Yu's situation. Luo Yu. Picking up Luo Yu's phone call, Zhang Yu's mood immediately became excited. Her voice was trembling from the microphone, and Luo Yu couldn't help but ask, Xiao Yu, what's wrong with you? Luo Yu, my mother. Before the words were finished, Zhang Yu couldn't help but choke. I have lost a mother, and I don't want to lose a second one. Luo Yu, what should I do? What to do? Cold. Su Wan, who was leaning against the wall, heard Zhang Yu's tearful phone call. She couldn't help but frown, then involuntarily raised her face and looked at Zhang Yu coldly. If you want to make a phone call, please stay away. My mom will be fine. Why are you crying over there? This time, Su Wan did not restrain her coldness and tone, and Luo Yu on the other end of the phone also clearly heard Su Wan's voice. Suddenly, his face sank. Xiao Yu, don't worry. I will bring my family's private doctor over right away. Auntie will be fine. Luo Yu had hung up the phone in a hurry, and Zhang Yu clenched the phone in her hand and looked at Su Wan with a wronged face. Xiao Wan, I am also worried about my mother. I don't know what to do. I am not. Okay, stop quarreling. Su Haiqing, who had been silent, finally couldn't bear it and said, Your mother is still unconscious. Can't you two be quiet? Dad, Chapter 142. When Luo Yu rushed to the Su family's house with the Luo family's private doctor, old Gua had not come out yet. Because Luo Yu and Su Wan had come to the Su family several times before, the servants of the Su family did not stop Luo Yu and the people he brought. Going up to the second floor with ease, Luo Yu first nodded at Zhang Yu, motioning her not to worry, and then turned to look at Su Haiqing on the side. Uncle Su, how is Aunt Wan? Hearing Luo Yu's question, Su Haiqing shook his head slightly. Old Gua has not come out yet, and I don't know the situation inside for the time being. Speaking of this, Su Haiqing couldn't help but sigh again. Uncle Su, don't worry. Old Gua is second to none. He should be able to help Aunt Wan, and I brought my grandfather's private doctor this time. If there is anything you can use, Uncle Su, you must not be polite. Luo family's 3 generations were officials. Although Luo Yu's grandfather has retired, he is also a powerful figure in D-City who can cause a major earthquake by stamping his feet. His private doctor is naturally of extraordinary status, and ordinary people can't hire him even if they have money. At this time, hearing Luo Yu's words, Su Haiqing's eyes lit up, and immediately turned to look at the middle-aged man in a gray suit behind Luo Yu. Meeting Su Haiqing's gaze, the middle-aged man nodded slightly at him. Young Master Luo, Su Haiqing wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Luo Yu with a smile. Aunt Wan is Xiaoyu's mother and my elder. I should do these things. Luo Yu, thank you. Zhang Yu, who had been silent on the side, heard Luo Yu's words and immediately looked at him with a moved face. Silly girl, Aunt will be fine. You can rest assured. Luo Yu smiled at Jiang Yu, raised his hand and gently touched her hair, and Jiang Yu immediately lowered her eyes in embarrassment. For Luo Yu, Su Haiqing's thoughts are also complicated. When Su Wan and Luo Yu were together, Su Haiqing hoped that Luo Yu could be his son-in-law, so that he would have a strong backer in D-City, but since Luo Yu and Su Wan broke up, he began to pursue Jiang Yu, which made Su Haiqing's head really big. These two children were both his daughters. Although Su Wan was not his biological daughter, he had raised them for more than 10 years and spoiled them for more than 10 years. The feelings between father and daughter had long been inseparable. Now because of a man, the two sisters became enemies, which made Su Haiqing's desire to rely on Luo family fade a lot. Especially after Wan Shu's serious illness and Su Yu's accident, Su Haiqing suddenly felt that no matter how much power and wealth there was in the world, no matter how much money and no matter how much power he had, he could not buy back the life of his relatives and the health of his lover. The so-called riches and honor were but a fleeting cloud. Now Su Haiqing really doesn't have the idea of wanting to curry favor with Luo family, but seeing that Luo Yu treated Jiang Yu sincerely and did his best to work for the Su family, Su Haiqing was also gratified. But Su Wan. Su Haiqing subconsciously glanced at Su Wan, who had been leaning against the door with her eyes down. No one could see the expression on her face at the moment, but, creak, the sound of the door opening interrupted Su Haiqing's thoughts, and everyone at the door subconsciously raised their heads and looked at the door. An old man in a black tunic suit walked out slowly with the help of a young man. The old man's complexion was a little pale, and his forehead was full of sweat. Old Gua. Su Haiqing looked at the old man at the door with an excited and nervous face. My wife, is she awake? Hearing Su Haiqing's question, old Gua's face darkened slightly. Mr. Su, this old man has done his best, but your wife's body, alas. Old Gua sighed and his eyes fell on Su Haiqing's face. Please forgive me for being powerless. How could this be? When Su Haiqing heard old Gua's words, his face instantly turned ashen, and his tall figure involuntarily swayed twice. Resisting the disappointment in his heart, Su Haiqing took out a check from his arms with trembling hands and handed it to old Gua. Thank you for your hard work. I will send someone to drive you back. Old Gua shook his head and did not take the check. I also had a lot of dealings with the Wan family in the past. Today, this consultation fee is waived. After that, Master Gua slightly turned his head and glanced at the young man next to him. The young man was Master Gua's apprentice. Receiving his master's signal, he immediately helped Master Gua to the stairs and said, I will send my master back. Don't bother, Mr. Su. Seeing the master and apprentice slowly leaving, Su Haiqing hurriedly turned around, as if grasping the last life-saving straw, and looked at Luo Yu and the doctor he brought with him. Dr. Su, sorry to trouble you. Luo Yu's mind was clear, and he naturally didn't need Su Haiqing to speak. He had already taken the initiative to give an order. When Dr. Su heard Luo Yu's words, he immediately nodded and walked into Wan Shu's bedroom. There were a lot of medical equipment prepared in this bedroom, most of which were prepared by Su Yu before, and it could be regarded as the most advanced medical equipment in the world. Looking at the unconscious patient on the bed, Dr. Su put on the medical gloves he carried with him, then picked up the equipment that had been prepared in the room and started the most basic examination. Time passed minute by minute, and waiting was always the most difficult thing to bear. Su Haiqing experienced a disappointment, and now his eyes were red with anxiety, and Jiang Yu was also gently held in Luo Yu's arms and comforted in a low voice. Su Wan still leaned alone on the edge of the bed, lowered her eyes, and looked at the watch on her wrist. Soon. It will normally take 45 minutes from Su Rui's studio to Su family's villa. Of course, if you run the red light all the way, you can save 10 minutes. Bang! Su Wan was counting the time, and the door of the villa was suddenly slammed open from the outside. Sorry, my hand slipped. Su Rui, who was still wearing the studio's blue overalls, smiled innocently at the people in the villa, and behind him were the Su family's security personnel. Mr. Su, this gentleman insisted on breaking in and didn't even give the time to report. We couldn't stop him. Forget it, all go down. At this time, where would Su Haiqing have the mind to care about the door of the villa and Su Rui coming uninvited? When the security personnel outside the door heard the boss's instructions, they immediately breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts and obediently retreated. Oh my! This month's bonus was finally saved. It was the first time that Su Rue came to the Su family. Seeing the strange faces of the people in the corridor upstairs, Su Rue also put away the smile on his face and quickly walked to the second floor and went straight to Su Wan. Wife, what happened? Mom is in a coma and hasn't woken up yet. Su Wan whispered to Su Rue in a low voice. Hearing this, Su Rue's eyes also narrowed. Although when Shu was doomed to not live long, she should never be in a coma at this time. According to the plot of the original world, when Shu had to wait until Su Wan was cannon fodder before her body would deteriorate day by day and finally die in a coma. Exchanging glances with Su Wan, Su Rue immediately understood Su Wan's meaning. He gently pulled Su Wan's hand and slightly nodded at her. All variables have a certain cause and effect. So was when Shu's sudden coma because Su Rue killed Su Yu? At this moment, the two people were not quite sure of the connection between the two things and could only wait for the good news from Dr. Su. Not long after, the bedroom door finally opened again. Dr. Su was not as tired as old Gua, but his face was also very bad. Dr. Su, how is Aunt One? Luo Yu was the first to ask. Hearing his question, Dr. Su hesitated slightly and shook his head. Mrs. Su's condition is very bad. I have done a lot of examinations on her and found that there is an unknown toxin in her body. This toxin has spread to the blood vessels and meridians of her body. I suspect that this unknown toxin is the culprit that caused her to be in a coma, but at present, I am still helpless about this toxin. I have taken samples today and am ready to take them back for research, but after a pause, Dr. Su's eyes slowly fell on Su Haiqing's body. It will take at least 2 months to analyze the composition of this unknown toxin. I'm afraid Mrs. Su can't wait that long. Dr. Su said it tactfully, but in fact, like old Gua, he was currently unable to do anything about Wen Shu's physical condition. Disappointment once again. Perhaps it was despair. Su Haiqing's eyes were empty at this time. At this moment, he even lost the strength to speak and didn't know what kind of expression he should have. At this time, Su Rue, who was next to Su Wan, suddenly entered the bedroom in a flash. Let me see. While speaking, Su Rue waved his hand and the bedroom door was slammed shut. Bang! The loud sound of the door closing brought Su Haiqing back to his senses from the bottom of despair. Su Haiqing's reaction was still a little slow, and Luo Yu on the side had already strode forward, wanting to push open the bedroom door. No one is allowed to go in and disturb him. At this time, Su Wan suddenly raised her arm and stopped Luo Yu's figure. Su Wan, are you just going to let him mess around like this? In case something happens to Aunt One, can you afford it? Being blocked by Su Wan, Luo Yu couldn't help but lower his eyes and look at the person in front of him with a cold face. She is my mother. Why can't I afford it? Su Wan's eyes were also cold, and she looked at Luo Yu in front of her with an unkind expression. Besides, this is our Su family. It's not your turn as an outsider to point fingers here. Outsider? Luo Yu's lips flashed a sarcastic smile. In the end, who is the outsider? Who knows in their hearts? Luo Yu suddenly turned to look at Su Haiqing behind him. Uncle Su, are you going to let these two people mess around in your Su family? Dad. Without waiting for Su Haiqing to speak, Su Wan had already blocked the door and looked at the haggard Su Haiqing. If you believe me, give us this chance. If you don't believe me, I will immediately take Xiaoqi away from here and never stay here for another second. Chapter 143. In Su Haiqing's memory, his daughter Su Wan had been spoiled since she was a child. She had also lost her temper in front of him, but Su Haiqing had never seen such a calm and firm look in Su Wan's eyes before. Looking at the closed door, Su Haiqing finally sighed. None of us will go in, but, little Xiao, does he know medicine? There is a saying that a dead horse should be treated as a living horse. Everyone will hope for a miracle to happen in despair. At this time, Su Haiqing may also have such a mentality. Medical skills? Sorry, there are 1,001 ways to kill people. General Su can do it easily. As for saving people, he will. Su Wan replied calmly, without any guilty expression on her face. But Jiang Yu on the side opened her mouth and wanted to speak. but noticed that Su Wan was staring at her with a cold expression. Jiang Yu had to gently close her mouth, but she was still worried about Xiao Qi in her heart. Jiang Yu has known Xiao Qi for almost 10 years. She thinks she knows Xiao Qi well enough. He knows kung fu, can cook, and is even good at cleaning up housework and taking care of people. But medical skills are so difficult. How could Brother Xiao know? Being able to help his adoptive father take care of those injured companions in the martial arts field and help them massage is already all that Xiao Qi knows. No matter what mood the people outside the door were in the room, Su Rui had come to Wenshu's hospital bed. Although Wenshu, who was just in her early 40s, was ill for a long time, she looked like she was in her early 30s on the hospital bed because of proper maintenance and outstanding appearance. Even if she was in a coma, it was difficult to hide the elegance and nobility on her face. Su Rui looked at Wenshu's face, and his slender and powerful fingers involuntarily rested on Wenshu's pale and thin wrist. At the same time, Su Rui used his left hand to pull out the scalpel he took from Su Yu that day from his waist, and gently cut a wound on the tip of Wenshu's index finger. Not long after, drops of slightly purple-red blood flowed out of Wenshu's fingertips. Su Rui's eyes flashed, and he put all the blood in the container on the table. Unlike Dr. Su's caution, Su Rui directly dipped the blade of the scalpel in the blood and put it in front of his nose to smell it. This is smelling the special smell in the blood. Su Rui slightly closed his eyes, the structure and smell of countless viruses and toxins constantly flashing through his mind. Finally, he suddenly opened his eyes, his gaze flashing with understanding. So that's how it is. Su Rui couldn't help but take another look at Wenshu on the hospital bed, and the expression on his face became a bit strange. Picking up a white towel and carelessly wiping the blood on the scalpel, Su Rui hesitated, and finally took the glass container to Wenshu's bed again, and then pointed her bleeding finger at the opening of the container. Since it's my karma, I'll just end it. Muttering to himself in a low voice, the fingers of Su Rui's right hand fiercely hit the acupuncture point of Manjushri's heart meridian. Drops of slightly purple-red blood flowed out of Manjushri's fingertips. Not long after, it almost filled the entire container, and at this time, the room also began to fill with a faint strange smell.
Yes.
Wenshu on the bed whispered softly, her long eyelashes trembled, and she slowly opened her eyes. Everything in front of her was still blurry and swaying. It took Wenshu a moment to adapt before she realized that she was lying in a bedroom, surrounded by familiar medical equipment. She remembered that she seemed to be unconscious, and now, Wenshu turned her face slightly and saw a strange young man standing next to the big bed. At this time, he was still holding a container full of blood in his hand. The eyes of the two people unexpectedly met. The young man's eyes were too cold and sharp, but Wenshu did not feel afraid facing such a cold gaze. Instead, she smiled gently at Su Rui. "You are you? Xiao Qi?" She had seen his photo and knew that he was her daughter's current lover. Wenshu's voice was the same as her, particularly gentle and particularly kind. Just a gentle inquiry immediately made Su Rui's gaze soften. "I am Xiao Qi. Auntie, how do you feel?" "I think it's very good." Wenshu smiled at Su Rui again, her gaze falling on the container of blood. "This is my blood?" "Yes, you were poisoned, a chronic poison. Because you didn't continue to inject it within the specified time, you suddenly fell into a coma. These toxins are actually..." Before Su Rui finished speaking, Wenshu interrupted him indifferently. "I know? You know that he did it?" Su Rui's gaze flashed, looking at Wenshu with some surprise. Chapter 144. Do you know he did it? Hearing Su Rui's question, Wenshu lowered her eyes, and the expression on her face was a little complicated. "Su Yu, that child, is a poor child. I know he has been, alas." Wenshu sighed and did not continue. Perhaps she felt that it was a bit strange to mention such a topic in front of her prospective son-in-law at this moment. Her husband's nephew had some kind of different desire for her. This kind of thing, a lady like Wenshu, even if she knew it in her heart, she would not say it. The reason why she told Su Rui about this today was that Wenshu felt that Su Rui seemed to have seen through the truth. Yes, this young man's eyes can really see through people's hearts. Feeling that when Shu didn't want to mention Suyu again, Su Rue stopped asking. He put the container full of blood on the bedside cabinet, his palms down. She gathered in his dantian. Internal energy was released from his palms, and the full container of blood was constantly evaporating at a speed visible to the naked eye. When Shu saw this kind of thing beyond the scope of science in front of her, she was stunned for a moment. Then she noticed Su Rue's constantly pale face, and a gentle appreciation flashed in her eyes. This child not only didn't mind showing his difference in front of her, but even deliberately destroyed all the traces of the toxins Suyu injected into her body, which was also a disguised protection for Shu. Of course, everything he did was not because of how important she was to him. Everything was because of Xiao Wan. He loved Xiao Wan and loved her, so he would do his best to think for her. Thinking that her daughter, who she had been worried about, finally found a good home this time. The smile on Shu's face became more gentle. When Su Rue finished doing everything, he raised his eyes and saw Shu leaning against the bed, looking at himself with a gentle face and a shallow smile on her lips. There was no window in the room, but at this moment, Shu's body seemed to be shining with the sun. Su Rue began to understand a little why Suyu, who lost his parents since childhood, had a paranoid feeling for Shu, and why Jiangyu, who completely inherited Shu's appearance, was so popular with men. It turned out that the aura of the female lead was inherited from her mother, but Shu was born in a scholarly family. Her gentleness in her bones was something that Jiangyu, who often helped with good intentions, couldn't match. Done. Retracting his thoughts, Su Rue smiled at Shu. Auntie, I'll call them in. Uncle Su has been waiting anxiously outside for a long time. While speaking, Su Rue had already turned and walked towards the door of the bedroom. He gently opened the door and everyone's line of sight immediately turned towards Su Rue. Seeing that Su Rue's face was a bit pale, Su Wan immediately stepped forward and held his hand with concern. Are you okay? I'm fine. Su Rue smiled at Su Wan and looked up at Su Haiqing on the side. Uncle, Aunt has woken up. Why don't you go in and see her? What? Su Haiqing looked at Su Rue incredulously, then suddenly lifted his foot and rushed in. Passing by Su Haiqing, Su Rue directly raised his hand and closed the bedroom door. It's better if we don't disturb them at this time. Saying this, Su Rue's footsteps staggered. His entire body tilted, and he directly fell into Su Wan's embrace. Su. Xiaoqi. Su Wan turned pale with fright and immediately supported Su Rue. You. Don't scare me. I'm just too tired. Su Rue rested his head on Su Wan's thin shoulder, and even his tone became a little weak. Wife, can you help me back to your room to rest for a while? Okay. Su Wan immediately turned around and helped Su Rue walk towards her bedroom. Zhang Yu and Luo Yu, who were left outside the door, could only continue to be silently ignored. Su Wan's bedroom was not far from Shu's bedroom. She struggled to help Su Rue into the bedroom. Su Wan was about to turn around and close the door when Su Rue, who was on her side, suddenly pressed over like weightlessness. As a result, the two people fell together on the furry carpet. There was not much pain on the body, but the noses of the two people hit each other heavily, which made Su Wan frown in pain. But at the moment she was more concerned about Su Rue's body. Are you okay? She raised her eyes and looked at the man on top of her with concern and anxiety. As a result, drip drops of bright red blood fell on Su Wan's face. Your nose is bleeding. Su Wan struggled a bit, trying to get out of Su Rue's body. But Su Rue suddenly leaned down and hugged Su Wan tightly. Wife, can you stop moving? I'll hold you for a while. Feeling the changes in a certain part of Su Rue's body, Su Wan's face immediately brightened. Chapter 145. When Shu's ability to wake up from a coma was the happiest thing in the Su family today. In the evening, Su Haiqing found the first chef of the Su family restaurant chain and cooked a sumptuous dinner in the villa. The long dining table was filled with 6 people. This was the most crowded and lively dinner in the Su family during this period. Su Haiqing and Shu lived in the 2 main seats respectively, while Su Wan and Su Rue sat on the left, and Zhang Yu and Luo Yu sat on the right. During the dinner, Shu kept smiling and adding dishes to her 2 daughters. Su Haiqing was also in a good mood. opened a bottle of red wine, and personally poured a glass of wine for Su Rue. Little Chi, it's really thanks to you this time. From Little Xiao to Little Chi, although they were all calling the same person, the tone and meaning were completely different. In fact, Su Rue would rather Su Haiqing always call him Little Xiao. It's much better than stingy. On the other side of the table, Luo Yu saw that Su Haiqing actually bypassed him and directly poured wine for Su Rue, the country bumpkin. And young Master Luo's face immediately became gloomy. Feeling Luo Yu's displeasure, Jiang Yu's eyes turned and immediately smiled and gave Luo Yu a piece of fish. Luo Yu, try it. This dish is very delicious. And Luo Yu saw Jiang Yu smile, and his mood improved a lot in an instant. But when he saw the fish she put in his bowl, he couldn't help but frown. Luo Yu doesn't eat fish. This is not a secret in Feng Heng. But Jiang Yu didn't know. Wife, you should eat fish too. It's your favorite. At this time, Su Rue also smiled and gave Su Wan a piece of fish, and the bones were picked out by him. Su Wan had long been accustomed to General Su's attentiveness, but when Shu, who was sitting on the main seat, saw that Su Rue was so considerate and gentle to Su Wan, she couldn't help but smile and said softly, "Our family Xiaowan has loved to eat fish since she was a child. I remember that when she was 6 years old, she accidentally got stuck by a fish bone. At that time, this girl came out of the hospital and hugged me with snot and tears. She said that when she grew up, she must find a husband who could help her pick out fish bones. I didn't expect her wish to come true so soon." Hearing Wen Shu's words, Su Haiqing's gaze towards Su Rue became softer. In fact, after Su Rue rescued Wen Shu, Su Haiqing had already acknowledged this son-in-law in his heart. Now he was a father-in-law looking at his son-in-law. The more he looked at him, the more pleasing he was. When Jiang Yu heard her parents praise Xiao Qi so much, she suddenly felt a little dazed for a while. Zhao Mei loved to eat fish, and Jiang Yu grew up with her adoptive mother and developed this habit. She still remembers that when she was a child, the Xiao brothers would often quietly give her the leftover fish at home to eat, and every time the bones were removed. At that time, Jiang Yu didn't feel anything. Now that she saw her big brother Xiao being so gentle and considerate to Su Wan, Jiang Yu's heart was a little complicated and difficult to explain for a while. It turned out that big brother Xiao would be so gentle and even more gentle to her than this, but she had never been aware of it. But now, he would rarely look at her in the eye. Like Jiang Yu, Luo Yu's heart was also a little strange. When Su Wan was with him before, he didn't like to eat fish, and Su Wan never ate fish with him. At that time, Luo Yu thought that she didn't eat fish like him. Unexpectedly, this may be the difference between loving and being loved. Luo Yu, who was loved by Su Wan, only saw the shortcomings of the other party, but never paid attention to what the young lady who loved him had done for him. Now, Luo Yu loves Jiang Yu, and he is willing to give everything for Jiang Yu. But Jiang Yu, who was loved by him like this, didn't notice what Luo Yu needed. In love, it's not necessarily that whoever is moved first will lose. The loser is always the one whose efforts and returns are not proportional. He, she, may not be the one who is moved first, but after being moved, he will always be the one who pays the most. After a somewhat sullen dinner, Luo Yu said goodbye to the Su family, and Jiang Yu was also very sensible and sent him out of the door. As for General Su, Su Haiqing was impressed by his medical skills and took the initiative to invite Su Rue to stay for a while and observe Wen Shu's body. For this request, Su Rue naturally agreed. But seeing Su Haiqing instructing the servants to clean up the guest room for him, General Su's face immediately turned cold. "Uncle, you don't have to be so troublesome." Su Rue, as always, intimately embraced Su Wan's shoulder. "I can stay in the same room with Xiao Wan. I can't sleep without her." Su Haiqing, you really have the nerve to say this in front of me, your future father-in-law? Well, my family's Xiao Wan will be handed over to you. Without waiting for Su Haiqing to answer, Wen Shu on the side had already smiled and agreed to Su Rue's request. "Madam?" Su Haiqing looked at Wen Shu with some surprise. Wen Shu leaned over to Su Haiqing's ear and whispered a few words. Su Haiqing's expression changed several times, and then he let Wen Shu pull him upstairs. He acquiesced to Su Rue's unreasonable request. Guess what Wen Shu and Su Haiqing said? Su Rue continued to rest his chin on Su Wan's small shoulder and asked with a smile. "I can't guess. Su Wan doesn't know martial arts. and her hearing is naturally not as sharp as Su Rui's. She and Su Haiqing said. Su Rui slowly raised his face, and his lips moved to Su Wan's ear. He was about to continue speaking, but suddenly there was another annoying voice behind the two people. Big Brother Xiao. Zhang Yu came in from the door and saw Su Rui sticking to Su Wan's side and seemed to be kissing her earlobe. At that moment, Zhang Yu's brain was blank, and she subconsciously shouted, Big Brother Xiao, interrupting Su Rui's action. Really in the way. Su Rui whispered discontentedly, turned his face, and looked coldly at Zhang Yu, who came from the door. What's the matter? Big Brother Xiao, thank you for saving my mother. I really don't know how to thank you. At this moment, Zhang Yu looked at Su Rui sincerely in front of her, and many past scenes flashed in her mind. When Xiaomei was hospitalized last year, and when Xiaomei died, Zhang Yu, who was alone at that time, was completely at a loss and didn't know what to do. Every time, Shaoqi stepped forward and did his best to help her. He also silently supported and encouraged her. These things had been gradually forgotten by Zhang Yu with the beginning of her new life. But today, seeing her big brother Xiao once again turn the tide and save her biological mother from the line of life and death, Zhang Yu's gratitude and dependence on Shaoqi in her heart was awakened again. It has always been Big Brother Xiao who has been helping me. I really feel that it is the greatest luck in my life to be able to know you. At this moment, Zhang Yu just wanted to express the surging gratitude in her heart. Well, she really didn't mean it. She didn't mean to find a sense of existence in front of other people's girlfriends. But this kind of misunderstanding-inducing attitude is really not very good. At least Su Wan doesn't like it. She hates other women looking at Su Rui with admiration or dependence. What are you looking at? Haven't seen a man before? Well, when you really love someone, and the love is unforgettable, then it is absolutely normal to turn into a little vinegar jar. Achi, I'm tired. You carry me upstairs. Let's wash and sleep. Su Wan did not directly flip out at Zhang Yu. Su Wan had a deep understanding of the female lead, Darren's degree of brain damage. She would not waste time talking nonsense with her. At this time, Su Wan just said softly, while raising her hand and gently pulling Su Rui's finger. Okay, wife. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rui didn't even think about it. He immediately carried his wife in his arms, and then smiled and carried Su Wan up the stairs quickly. As for the female lead, Darren's gratitude. What the hell is that? Walking to the bedroom door, Su Wan suddenly struggled desperately in Su Rui's arms. Su Rui was stunned and subconsciously let go of his hand and put her down. Waifu. Su Rui hadn't finished speaking when he was forced to lean against the wall next to the bedroom door by Su Wan in front of him. Stick to the wall. Don't move. Su Wan looked at Su Rui with a cold face and sharp eyes. General Su, who didn't know what crime he had committed, was treated so coldly by his wife for the first time. For a while, he stared blankly at Su Wan. Then General Su saw a scene that made his heart beat faster. Su Wan, who was not tall, raised her arm and supported herself on the wall with one hand. Although her arm only reached the position of Su Rui's shoulder, Su Wan still raised her other hand in a particularly domineering manner. While hugging Su Rui's neck, she stood on tiptoe and kissed him fiercely. Wall tapping and whatnot? It's definitely a killer move to show affection. Chapter 146. After returning to the Su family, Zhang Yu had insomnia for the first time. This night, as long as Zhang Yu closed her eyes, she would see the picture of Su Wan standing on tiptoe and pressing Brother Xiao to kiss, and when she opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling, Zhang Yu could see Brother Xiao suddenly turning around and pressing Su Wan into his arms and kissing her more passionately. In short, the Su couple is really the first person among the mission enforcers to successfully use the ultimate skill of showing affection to make the heroine of a world lose sleep. The next morning, Zhang Yu was woken up by the alarm clock for the first time. With 2 dark circles under her eyes, she hurriedly put on her school uniform and went out of the door. As a result, when she just walked to the door of Su Wan's room, Su Wan also opened the door. At the door, Su Wan was wearing loose pajamas and still looked sleepy. Obviously, she also just got up. Noticing the hickeys under Su Wan's collarbone, Jiang Yu's face immediately became a little embarrassed. Wife, I'm done bathing, you should go wash up. At this time, Su Rui's voice suddenly came from the bedroom. It turned out that the two people who were tired of each other for most of the night last night were busy washing up because they got up late this morning. It was obviously a bit crowded to use the same bathroom at the same time. So Su Wan simply gave her bathroom to Su Rui. She just opened the door and planned to go out to the innermost independent bathroom on the second floor to wash up. She didn't expect to see Jiang Yu at the door. "Xiao, brother Xiao." Hearing Su Rui's voice, Jiang Yu subconsciously glanced behind Su Wan. As a result, she saw a man wearing a white bathrobe, wiping the water droplets on his hair while walking out slowly. Right now, Su Rui looked particularly sexy. His loose white bathrobe exposed his firm and charming chest. On his strong and sexy muscles, there were sparkling and translucent water droplets glimmering faintly, and the red kiss mark on his chest made people's imaginations roam. Jiang Yu only glanced at it, and her whole face turned red. You guys are busy. I'll go downstairs first." As she spoke, she had already turned around and fled. At this time, Su Wan also turned around, raised her eyebrows, and looked up and down at Su Rui. "Wife, why are you looking at me?" General Su was a little inexplicable by Su Wan's gaze, and a very bad feeling suddenly welled up in his heart. Su Wan took a step forward and grabbed a corner of Su Rui's bathrobe, pulling him in front of her. Her other hand took the opportunity to pinch the soft flesh on his waist. "Speak. Did you do it on purpose?" "Su Rui, this general is innocent." "Wife, why are you so observant? You even discovered that I deliberately came out to seduce the female lead?" "All right," General Su admitted that he did it on purpose, but it wasn't for the female lead. He just wanted to see his wife's jealous look again. Moreover, when he thought about how his wife would take the initiative after eating the wrong thing, General Su felt that those experts who were full of nonsense were right about one thing. Being jealous is good for your health. When Shu, who had just woken up from a coma, did not go downstairs in the morning, Su Haiqing, the 24 filial good husband, naturally accompanied his wife upstairs. Therefore, only Su Wan, Su Rui, and the female lead Darren were left in the dining room on the first floor of Su's house. Jiang Yu, who had not rested well last night, had to be bitterly shown off by General Su's show of affection at the dinner table. Even when he was about to go out, Su Rui still reluctantly pulled Su Wan to him and kissed her hard. Only then did he go to work in the studio contentedly. Seeing Jiang Yu's bitter face all morning, Su Wan was really comfortable. This time, both of them were sitting in the back seat of the car. Su Wan hummed a little love song along the way. Her face was flushed with success, making Jiang Yu frown. Until they arrived at the school gate. Watching Su Wan quickly get out of the car with her school bag, Jiang Yu immediately chased after her. "Xiao Wan, I have something to say to you." "Speak." Su Wan continued to walk forward and did not stop to wait for her. Fortunately, Jiang Yu had long been accustomed to Su Wan's cold attitude towards herself. She quickly chased after Su Wan's footsteps, biting her lip, and seemed to have made a lot of mental preparations. Then she said in a low voice, "Xiao Wan, you and brother Xiao, are you serious about him? Does it have anything to do with you? This is between me and Xiao Qi. You just take care of yourself and Luo Yu." Hearing Jiang Yu's words, Su Wan's footsteps paused, and her tone was still as cold as ever. After Jiang Yu heard Su Wan mention Luo Yu's name, her face immediately became a little tangled. "Xiao Wan, do you still like Luo Yu? So you deliberately got together with brother Xiao to anger Luo Yu, isn't it?" "Xiao Wan, don't be like this. Brother Xiao is a good person. If you hate me and Luo Yu, you can find us to vent your anger. Don't involve innocent people." Su Wan was speechless about the female lead's divine logic. "Okay?" Seeing Su Wan's calm face and not talking, Jiang Yu thought she was right. She immediately looked at Su Wan more sincerely. "Xiao Wan, we are sisters. There shouldn't be any unsolvable knot. I really got together with him after you and Luo Yu broke up. If you are unhappy because of this, I will go find Luo Yu to break up." "Oh?" This time, Su Wan's cold face finally had an expression. "You are willing to break up with Luo Yu? Just for Xiao Qi?" Su Wan's question naturally led to some reverie, But according to the meaning Jiang Yu had just expressed, wasn't that the meaning? Seeing that Su Wan had finally loosened up, Jiang Yu was more determined in her guess. She hesitated for a while, and immediately nodded vigorously. I am willing, as long as you, no need. Suddenly, a young man's clear and indifferent voice came from behind. Jiang Yu froze in place, staring at Luo Yu in the early morning sun, standing quietly beside the two people. Let's break up now. Luo Yu glanced at Jiang Yu. The pride belonging to the Luo family made him unable to tolerate his love being trampled on like this. In fact, at the dining table yesterday, Luo Yu saw Jiang Yu staring at Xiaoqi in a daze. At that time, he already had some premonitions. Today, he heard Jiang Yu's words with his own ears, and Luo Yu had to express his position at this time. Although he appreciated and liked this girl, Luo Yu had his own principles and his own pride. Luo Yu in this life did not hate Su Wan as much as he did in the original mission world, and without Su Wan's negative contrast, he did not love Jiang Yu as deeply as in the original world. So, at this moment, he said that he wanted to break up. Although he was a little uncomfortable, he did not feel heart-wrenching. Luo Yu. Jiang Yu was stunned in place, watching Luo Yu stride away step by step, as if he could no longer enter his own life in this life. At this moment, Jiang Yu's heart suddenly hurt. Only then did she realize that she had unknowingly fallen in love with Luo Yu again and again under his help and consideration. But if love and benevolence are destined to be incompatible, then, thinking of Brother Zhao's family's help to herself, Jiang Yu hardened her heart again and looked stubbornly at the culprit, Su Wan, in front of her. Now that Luo Yu and I have broken up, you have to keep your promise and let Brother Zhao go. Seeing the female lead in front of her with a righteous and self-sacrificing expression, Su Wan couldn't help but chuckle. Jiang Yu, did you leave your IQ at home when you went out this morning? Whether you and Luo Yu break up or not, does it have anything to do with me? Xiaoqi and I are living well, but I plan to spend a lifetime with him. Finished speaking, Su Wan forcefully flung her school bag and quickly turned around to leave. Su Wan. Jiang Yu stood in place, staring at Su Wan's back, and her eyes became a little complicated. How can you do this to me? Chapter 147. The news that Luo Yu and Jiang Yu broke up quickly spread throughout Fenghang College. Of course, Luo Yu's crazy support group, which only appeared in Xiaobai's idol drama, did not appear. With Jiang Yu's skill, who dares to trouble her? On Fenghang's forum, there were different opinions about the end of Luo Yu's love affair. Most of them speculated that Luo Yu and Jiang Yu's breakup must have something to do with Su Wan. In short, as a cannon fodder X, Su Wan had to be shot every time. Fortunately, she was not completely innocent this time. At least in Jiang Yu's heart, the culprit who caused her and Luo Yu to break up this time was Su Wan. So when school was over, Jiang Yu once again blocked Su Wan's way. This was the first time she looked at Su Wan condescendingly. Short people can't afford to be hurt. Su Wan was stopped by Jiang Yu and couldn't help but frown. What's the matter? Su Wan thought that Jiang Yu would continue to discuss Brother Xiao with her. As a result, this time Jiang Yu's style changed. She stared at Su Wan's face and asked loudly, Su Wan, now that you see that I broke up with Luo Yu, are you very happy? Su Wan, I already said that whether you two are together or not, it has nothing to do with me. Anyway, you will be NPC in the future. What's the point of splitting up? For Jiang Yu's questioning, Su Wan couldn't help but roll her eyes. There is a state called speechlessness. Please see Su Xiaowan. Why don't you speak? Are you feeling guilty? Seeing that Su Wan didn't speak, Jiang Yu began to be aggressive again. Su Wan, what did I do wrong to you? You grew up in the Su family without worrying about food and clothing. What about me? Do you know how much I suffered with my adoptive mother? You've occupied the identity that belongs to me. Have I ever argued with you about it? There was a large group of gossipy onlookers around the classroom. At this moment, when they heard Jiang Yu's words, everyone couldn't help but whisper. Where did the word occupied come from? In fact, most people really don't know the true identity of Jiang Yu and Su Wan. Seeing that Jiang Yu finally revealed each other's identities in a blabbermouth situation, Su Wan was not surprised. In the original plot, in the face of Su Wan's repeated provocations, Jiang Yu also broke out in an unbearable situation and, inadvertently, revealed the true identity of the two people. Since then, Suwan has become an inferior person that everyone looked down upon in Fengheng. She was also forced to leave Fengheng because she couldn't stand such a blow. I didn't say that you're sorry. Why are you so agitated? Suwan finally spoke slowly. At the same time, she threw her bag on the table at the door and her sharp gaze swept across the onlookers. I think everyone seems to be more interested in our identity. In fact, you guys still don't know, right? I am not the eldest miss of the Su family. Jiang Yu is the real eldest Mississippi. I am just a child who was wrongly reported by the Su family. No, to be exact, my mother selfishly wanted her daughter to live a good life, so after I was born, she swapped me with Jiang Yu. Ah. Oh my God. Hearing Su Wan's words, the crowd immediately burst into exclamations. Is this the legendary leopard cat replacing the crown prince? Su Wan, you. Seeing that Su Wan said everything, Jiang Yu's face changed. Why are you? In her heart, she always knew that Su Wan's most taboo was her identity, but now Su Wan actually admitted her identity in front of everyone. What's going on? Jiang Yu was stunned and looked at Su Wan incredulously. Jiang Yu, I told you not to use your IQ, but your eyes look at others. In your eyes, it's just a trivial matter that's not worth mentioning. I don't care about the identity of the Su family's daughter. I don't care whether you are with Luo Yu or with others. It has always been your wishful thinking that interferes with my life. Now I warn you one last time. Don't harass me anymore, and don't harass Xiaoqi. He won't be as easy to talk to as me. As she spoke, Su Wan elegantly picked up her school bag and put it on her back and walked into the crowd. Excuse me, make way. When the onlookers around heard Su Wan's words, they immediately consciously gave Su Wan a way out. But in the end, there was still a tall figure blocking Su Wan's way. Su Wan raised her head in surprise, and as a result, she met Luo Yu's handsome face. What's the matter? She frowned and looked at the boy in front of her, and her tone was as cold as ever. I'm driving today. I'll take you back. Luo Yu also spoke coldly, but as he spoke, he had already grabbed Su Wan's school bag with his height advantage and carried it in his hand. Then, regardless of whether Su Wan agreed or not, Luo Yu turned around and strode away. Su Wan, it's not right for you to be so arrogant. Su Wan can only give a bad comment for the male lead's overbearing CEO-like actions. However, when she thought that she really didn't want to go back in the same car with Jiang Yu, Su Wan finally quickly caught up with Luo Yu's footsteps. The two people left side by side, one tall and one short, two figures. But they looked more harmonious than before. Without the excitement to watch, the people in the corridor gradually dispersed. Jiang Yu was still standing at the door of the classroom looking at the empty corridor, and the picture of Luo Yu and Su Wan leaving side by side kept flashing in her heart. Sure enough, Su Wan still cares about Luo Yu. Everything she did was to make Luo Yu change his mind. Jiang Yu bit her lips tightly, and unknowingly, her vermilion lips had oozed bright red blood. Xiaoyu, it's not worth it for a man like Luo Yu. Ouyang Luo's voice suddenly sounded behind her. Today, Ouyang Daxiao was wearing a set of beige casual clothes. At this time, he was posing, leaning against the window behind Jiang Yu, looking at Jiang Yu affectionately and distressed. I'm fine. Hearing Ouyang Luo's voice, Jiang Yu immediately wiped the blood on her lips, turned her head, and smiled at him with a forced smile. Jiang Yu didn't know that Ouyang Luo had already fallen in love at first sight for a long time. She only really knew Ouyang Luo a week ago. At that time, Ouyang Luo was suffering from Chinibyu, and he was alone on the school rooftop. As a result, he was met by Jiang Yu, who went upstairs to clean up. Ouyang Luo, who did not wear a school uniform, was regarded as an outsider by Jiang Yu, and seeing him wandering on the rooftop, Jiang Yu thought he was going to commit suicide, so she immediately used her vigorous skills to save the delinquent teenager. Well, to be precise, it was because of Jiang Yu's sudden appearance that Ouyang Luo almost lost his footing and fell downstairs. But in the face of Jiang Yu's caring eyes and those sincere words of comfort, Ouyang Luo's little heart, which had a good impression of her, was immediately conquered by the little angel in front of him. He felt that Jiang Yu was sent by God to save him. It must be so. When he was sure that he had been moved, Ouyang Luo, who was planning to conquer his sweetheart with his demonic and domineering charm, inadvertently saw Luo Yu and Jiang Yu holding hands on the campus. It turned out that the goddess was already taken, and the glass heart of a Chinibyu immediately broke into pieces. Ouyang Luo felt that he was lovelorn, and the pain of lovelorn made him forget his original plan to deal with Su Wan. Today, Ouyang Luo, who was bored and wandering in the school forum, suddenly saw the news that Luo Yu and Jiang Yu broke up. His first feeling was not ecstasy, but anger. Our family's Jiang Yu little angel is so kind and cute. Luo Yu dared to betray her? It's really unforgivable. Unforgivable. Achoo. The unforgivable scumbag had sneezed at this time and came to his car. Luo Yu's car was a very low-key Audi. After all, unlike government officials and businessmen, their Luo family has always been low-key. Sit down. After Luo Yu unlocked the car, he went directly to the other side of the car, opened the front passenger's door, and raised his hand and threw Su Wan's school bag into the car. Su Wan raised her eyes and glanced at Luo Yu. When we were together before, I didn't see you open the door for me so attentively. Hearing Su Wan's teasing words, Luo Yu's face turned serious. Indeed, I didn't take too much into account your feelings before. Su Wan, I owe you an apology. Oh? Su Wan raised an eyebrow at Luo Yu. You won't be like Jiang Yu, that retard, thinking that I really want to get back together with you, right? Hearing Su Wan's words, Luo Yu couldn't help but smile. Su Wan, I think I really know you today. In fact, Luo Yu was also absent-minded today. He was thinking about himself and Jiang Yu all day long. Even after school in the evening, he involuntarily walked to the door of her classroom. Because of this, Luo Yu heard and saw the confrontation between Jiang Yu and Su Wan. At that moment, somehow, Luo Yu's mind suddenly became clear. What is he like about Jiang Yu? Kindness and innocence? Or pure enthusiasm? In fact, Luo Yu noticed Jiang Yu at first, not because of her beauty, nor because of her excellent skills and righteous character, but at that time, Su Wan often said that Jiang Yu was wrong in front of him, and Luo Yu naturally put Su Wan's words on Jiang Yu. As a result, he found that the girl was much better than what Su Wan said. It was also from that time that Luo Yu began to notice Jiang Yu, watching her greet Su Wan with a smile again and again, and after being thwarted again and again, her face was full of smiles. That smile made Luo Yu feel excited. But today, when he saw Jiang Yu chasing after Su Wan and questioning her, his heart suddenly faded a lot. In fact, what's the difference between Jiang Yu and other girls? She is just an ordinary girl. If there is a difference, she is also beautiful, and she also has good kung fu. But that's all. Luo Yu remembered the girls he had known since he was a child, and the girls he had dated, they were not worse than Jiang Yu. No one is perfect. Everyone in this world will have their own personality, their own shortcomings. Just like Su Wan. She used to be full of shortcomings in his eyes, but in fact, as long as you carefully explore her, you can still find her excellent side. As a top student, Luo Yu's way of looking at and solving problems is also very fast. Thinking of Su Wan's silent accommodations to himself in the past, Luo Yu felt that he owed her an apology, and she could afford this sentence. As for looking back, Luo Yu didn't think about getting back together with Su Wan, because now his heart couldn't completely tell Jiang Yu to let go, and he also understood that he had no feelings for Su Wan for a long time. He took the initiative to send her off today, just for that apology. Chapter 148. Su Wan's life experience was finally no longer a secret in Fenghang, and Ouyang Luo, who originally planned to use her identity to attack her, could only temporarily stop, waiting for the next opportunity to embarrass Su Wan. Since Luo Yu sent Su Wan home that day, the news of Luo Yu and Su Wan's old love has naturally begun to spread silently in the school. Unfortunately, since then, the two people have no intersection. Luo Yu concentrated on preparing for the college entrance examination, and Su Wan began to concentrate on her studies without Jiang Yu's harassment. In a blink of an eye, it was the annual Christmas. Fenghang has the habit of holding a masquerade party every year on a carnival night, and the whole school's teachers and students will attend this dance. In fact, Su Wan had no interest in this kind of dance, but Su Rui's studio's game has entered the most important testing stage, so he can't accompany Su-won for Christmas. Under boredom, Su-won had to order a witch's robe in a special shop and went to the school's banquet hall with little interest, ready to watch the beginning of the teacher-student relationship between the female lead and Wen Hao. As Su-won knows, Jiang has been preparing for this dance. During this period, she has gradually come out of her relationship with Luo Yu. In fact, Jiang also thought of looking for her childhood sweetheart, Brother Xiao, to expose Su-won's true face in front of him. Unfortunately, how could General Su give her this opportunity? Although Su Rue also lived in the Su family during this period, Jiang didn't even have a chance to talk to him alone. After a long time, Jiang saw that Su Rue really didn't like her, so she could only put this matter in the bottom of her heart. For tonight's masquerade party, Jiang chose Snow White's blue princess dress, with her slim figure, white skin, and snow-like black hair. It really has a dreamlike feeling. Everyone tonight wore masks to hide their true identity. Jiang face was wearing a half-face mask embroidered with white flowers and lace edges. Coupled with the Snow White style, she immediately became the focus of the crowd. In contrast, Su-won wore a black witch's robe and a dark golden full-face mask covered with strange lines on her face. Her whole body was wrapped in darkness, revealing only a pair of cold eyes and a gorgeous red lips. This style is comparable to those unconventional vampires at the ball, but such a strange style is considered a minority. After all, they are all 17 or 18 years old. Which girl doesn't want to be beautiful? Which girl doesn't yearn for love? In the banquet hall, there were dancing princes and knights everywhere, as well as beautiful princesses and elves. Dancing was Jiang weakness, so although people kept inviting her to dance all night, she finally refused them, until a man wearing a silver-white priest robe came to her. She didn't know what he said to Jiang. Jiang hesitated for a moment, then slowly entered the dance floor with him. Su-won knew that the person wearing priest attire was Wen Hao. The so-called refined scum probably referred to this kind of person. "Can I sit here?" A weak female voice suddenly sounded beside Su-won. Su-won slightly turned her head and saw a girl wearing a silver-gray mask and a gray dress standing beside her. "There is no one here, Cinderella." Su-won saw that the other party's coarse cloth dress was a bit familiar, as if it was what Cinderella wore at the beginning of the fairy tale. When she heard Su-won's words, the girl smiled slightly. "I have to be Cinderella, the one who dances with the prince on the dance floor, wearing crystal shoes. I am just Cinderella's sister." Without Cinderella's good luck, Cinderella's sister was jealous of Cinderella, who was loved by the prince. She had no magic, no crystal shoes. Everyone only remembered that Cinderella was bullied by her stepmother and sister at the beginning, but no one cared about how her sister lived after Cinderella and the prince were happy. Compared with Cinderella, who was favored by God and favored by the prince, her sister could only be regarded as cannon fodder. Cinderella's sister? When Su-won heard the other party's words, she immediately sat up straight and looked at the girl sitting opposite her with great interest. "I have a magic mirror. Do you want me to ask the magic mirror who will be your fated lover?" Fated lover. When the girl heard Su-won's words, her gaze absent-mindedly stared at a certain place in the banquet hall for a while. After a while, she came back to her senses, smiled, and shook her head at Su-won. "Doesn't your magic mirror only tell you who is the most beautiful person in the world? When did it upgrade to a new version?" "It has many uses. When you appeared, it already told me who you are." Su-won slightly leaned her body. That pair of pitch-black eyes under the strange mask looked particularly charming. "You know who I am?" Hearing Su-won's words, the girl who claimed to be Cinderella's sister also seemed to be interested, looking at Su-won with some faint expectation. In fact, she didn't believe that Su-won could recognize her, because at this moment, she was the other self that she carefully hid on ordinary days. "You are Su-nuwa." Su-won smiled at the girl opposite her and called out her name in a low voice. Su-nuwa stiffened on the sofa and stared blankly at Su-won's eyes. "You? How did you know?" "I guessed." Su-won smiled at Su-nuwa. In fact, she really didn't know that she was Su-nuwa at first, but when Su-nuwa was in a daze just now, Su-won noticed that she had been staring in a certain direction, and that direction was very remote, with only a lonely figure. The man was wearing a black night outfit, and his whole face was covered by a mask. He stood alone outside the crowd. Perhaps his aura was too strong, but no one dared to come forward and greet him easily. That night, he was Luo Yu, and the girl who could recognize Luo Yu at a glance, who could silently pay attention to him, and who could claim to be Cinderella's sister, Su Wan, could only think of Su Nuo. In fact, Su Nuo had always been secretly in love with Luo Yu, but she was a girl who was very good at hiding her thoughts. These were not mentioned in the world plot that Su Wan knew, which showed how perfect Su Nuo usually hid. However, when you love someone and care about someone, the way you look at him will be different. You will involuntarily pay attention to his every move, even a slight blink. Therefore, some of Su Nuo's attention to Luo Yu was finally discovered by Su Wan by accident. Su Nuo, whose identity was guessed by Su Wan, was stunned for a while, and finally smiled with relief. Su Wan, you are really different from before. Before, I hated you a little, but now I really like you a little. Su Nu suddenly stood up, raised her arm and pulled Su Wan up from the sofa. Your Excellency, which, I don't know if I can have the honor to ask you for a dance? Su Wan looked at her right hand that was grabbed by Su Nuo. Can I still refuse? Cinderella's sister? Hee. Su Nuo stuck out her tongue slightly, and then pulled Su Wan into the center of the dance floor. At this time, there were a lot of people dancing. Su Wan also noticed that Jiang Yu and Wen Wenhao were still dancing. The two people were very close. Wen Wenhao was almost hugging Jiang Yu and dancing. It seemed that he was teaching her to dance very carefully. In fact, the posture of the two people at this time was already extremely ambiguous. Seeing that Su Wan had been carelessly looking around, Su Nuo opened her mouth and was about to say something to Su Wan. Suddenly, her back was pushed by someone, and Su Nuo immediately fell out of the dance floor. This change came suddenly. Su Wan just wanted to reach out and hold Su Nuo, but her wrist was already tightly held by a big hand. Don't move, you are now this marquis prey. A messy silver hair, a dark and elegant tuxedo. Su Wan raised her eyes and saw a dark red mask. The owner of the mask was smiling at Su Wan at the moment, revealing two sharp teeth that belonged to a vampire. Why are you here? Su Wan's tone was full of surprise. She recognized the handsome vampire in front of her at a glance. It was her family's General Su. Wife, you recognized me at a glance. It's great. When Su Rue saw that Su Wan recognized him, he immediately grabbed Su Wan's hand and brought her into his arms. I wanted to give you a surprise. Let's dance together. Dancing with Su Rue was definitely a physical work. Su Wan had already experienced this, so she turned her eyes and immediately thought of an excuse. Wait a minute, I'll go see Sunu first. No need. Su Rue forcibly pressed Su Wan's arms so that she couldn't turn around and leave. I just saw the boss and directly pushed her into Luo Yu's arms. No one needs to thank me. Please call me Lei Feng. Chapter 149. The atmosphere of the carnival night was just right, and the constantly flashing lights of the auditorium were dazzling. Su Rue held Su Wan's arm, and the two started to dance slowly on the edge of the dance floor. Slowly, Su Rue began to take Su Wan to the center of the dance floor, and soon after, the two people turned to Wen Wenhao and Jiang Yu. At this time, Jiang Yu has mastered the most basic footwork under Wen Wenhao's gentle and careful teaching. The two people just had some tacit understanding, and they were staring at each other with gentle eyes. It seemed that the atmosphere was romantic. Wife, give them something exciting. Su Rue turned his face sideways, his lips leaned against Su Wan's witch hat, and his long fangs bit the brim of her hat twice. Naughty, Su Wan couldn't help but smile slyly at Su Wan. In the next second, she had already made a gorgeous turn. When she turned to Jiang Yu's side, the high-heeled shoes under her feet immediately stepped on the snow-white dress at an accurate angle. The quality of the dress in the specialized store was naturally guaranteed. The kind of situation where the dress was torn apart with one step did not happen, but because Su Wan used all her strength in this foot, and she had already aimed at the angle before she stepped down. As a result, under her foot, the princess dress on Jiang Yu's body, which was originally designed as a shoulder, immediately fell off, revealing the white underwear inside. The accident came too suddenly. The moment she realized that she was exposed, Jiang Yu immediately screamed. When Wenhao's eyes flashed in front of her, Because he didn't wear glasses, Wenhao only saw a flash of black in the crowd and did not catch the culprit who deliberately teased Jiang Yu. At this time, Jiang Yu's scream had attracted the attention of the people around her. Wenhao decisively took off his priest robe, and the whole robe just wrapped around Jiang Yu's body. It's okay, don't be afraid. Wenhao was only wearing a thin white shirt. He bent down and held Jiang Yu's whole body in his arms. I'll take you away first. At this time, Jiang Yu still looked panicked. Seeing the gentle and intimate eyes under Wenhao's mask, she immediately subconsciously buried her face in his warm chest. This person's embrace was very warm, and it made her feel especially at ease. Looking at Wenhao holding Jiang Yu and leaving the dance floor, looking at the man's back, Su Rue pulled the corner of his mouth and whispered in the crowd, "Hey, I recognize that shirt. Isn't that Teacher One?" Wenhao was also a relatively famous teacher in Fenghang. He was young and handsome, and just by looking at his clothes, one could tell that he had an extraordinary background. Wenhao wore white shirts the longest, and he only wore one brand. Hearing Su Rue's voice, the people on the dance floor couldn't help but turn their eyes to the gate. At this time, Wenhao had already walked to the gate with Jiang Yu in his arms. Naturally, he couldn't hear the whispers behind. Who is dancing with Teacher One? I don't know. She didn't even bring her skirt. Is she planning to go topless? Someone in the crowd couldn't help but make some malicious guesses, which immediately ignited the fire of gossip. Could the person with Wenhao be a teacher or a female student? TSK. It seems that there has never been a teacher-student relationship in Fenghang. It must be known that these students in Fenghang are either rich or noble. They have high standards and strict family education. Even if some playboys are very happy playing outside, even if they don't give Principal Ouyang face in school, for the sake of their parents' face, they always have to pretend to be good students. In this school where all the second generation of officials and rich second generation of D-City are gathered, if you really have any scandal, you will really be famous in the whole city. While everyone was discussing and guessing, Su Rue had slipped out of the side door of the auditorium with Su Wan. The night wind outside was bitterly cold. Su Wan subconsciously tightened the robe on her body. The next second, Su Rue had hugged her tightly from behind. "Wife, let's go home." And Su Wan nodded. The home Su Rue mentioned was not Su family, but the small apartment they used to rent near the school. Everything in the apartment was still the same as before she left. Su Wan hired hourly workers to come over and do a simple cleaning at noon every day. Opening the door of the apartment, a warm air rushed to her face. Su Wan raised her hand to turn on the light at the door, but was stopped by Su Rue. "Don't turn on the light." Su Rue pressed Su Wan against the door and kissed her face. "Xiao Wan, guess what Wenhao and Jiang Yu are doing?" "How would I know?" Su Wan said as she raised her hand and pulled out the two fangs that had been messing with her face in Su Rue's mouth. "Why don't we observe Teacher Wen's skills?" Su Rue suddenly took out a small receiver from his arms and shook it in front of Su Wan. "I just seem to have accidentally glued the newly developed miniature camera in the company to Jiang Yu's hair. Your mother? Is there such a careless thing? It's clearly intentional." Su Wan raised her eyes and looked at the receiver in Su Rue's hand seriously. "You seem to be very interested in Jiang Yu?" "And?" "Wife, I..." Just as Su Rue was about to explain, Su Wan had quickly grabbed the receiver in his hand. "It just so happens that I am also very curious about Wenhao's skills. It is said that this person's equipment is big, lively, good, and extraordinary. He can take care of Jiang Yu in one go." Cough. It's understandable that some guys with inferior skills are eager to observe him. "Wife, I was wrong. It's immoral to peek at others." Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rue's face immediately darkened. "Wife, what's so good about Wenhao? Does he have an 8-pack? Does he have a fishing line? Is he as handsome as me?" "Wife, you turn on the light. How about I let you look?" General Su was very regretful at the moment. How could he forget that Wenhao, that gigolo, was one of the most ferocious men in the world? Your mother, looking at such a weak and scholarly gigolo, but he had sex 7 times in one night. General Su thought that this was absolutely unscientific. Okay? Of course, if his skills were good, he could definitely kill this gigolo in seconds, just as Su Rue was distracted. Suwon had already turned on the light and connected the high-tech receiver directly to her smartphone, and then the screen immediately appeared in the mobile phone player. This new product is really great. The reception is fast, the effect is HD, and even the sound is available. Suwon raised her eyebrows and raised the volume of the mobile phone, and Jiang Yu's slightly gasping voice immediately came from it. "No, you can't do this, you quickly let me go." In the picture, Jiang Yu has been pressed against the corner of the living room by Wen Hao. From the perspective of the camera, both of them were still wearing masks at this time, and the priest robe on Jiang Yu's body had been scattered on the ground. Because the camera was in Jiang Yu's hair, Jiang Yu's figure couldn't be seen at all, but her slender arms could be clearly seen when she struggled. At this time, Jiang Yu had torn off the mask on Wen Hao's face because of her intense struggle. In an instant, Jiang Yu immediately froze there. "One, Teacher One?" Her voice was trembling. "Jiang Yu." When Wen Hao narrowed his eyes and slowly approached Jiang Yu's face, "I've liked you for a long time." As one of the many pursuers of the female lead in this world, Wen Hao is undoubtedly the most special one. This handsome guy with a gentle appearance is actually very keen on a certain kind of bed sport. The so-called beast in human clothing is precisely the color red and purple. When Wen Hao first entered Fenghang, he actually took a fancy to Jiang Yu at a glance. Later, he found out that Jiang Yu knew martial arts, and her body's flexibility was also very good, which aroused Wen Hao's heart to conquer. He approached quietly, wanting to make Jiang Yu fall in love with him unknowingly. But today, a man and a woman were alone. Especially when he saw the tempting beauty in front of him. Wen Hao's heart was already like a monkey and he couldn't control it. In the face of Wen Hao's sudden confession, Jiang Yu was stunned. While she was in a daze, Wen Hao had already held the back of Jiang Yu's head with one hand and kissed her lips fiercely. His skillful skills immediately defeated Jiang Yu, who knew nothing about love affairs. The battle between the two quickly escalated. Seeing that when Wen Hao began to undress, Su Rui on the side couldn't stand it anymore. He snatched the mobile phone in Suwon's hand and stared at her with a heavy gaze. "Wife, you are not allowed to look at him. You can only look at me." And Suwon held back her laughter and nodded with a serious face. "I'll just look at you, okay? Don't turn off your mobile phone. Help me copy this wonderful video and give it to Jiang Yu later so that she can keep it as a memento." "Keep it as a memento or something," Su Rui's eyes flashed, and he couldn't help but smile at Suwon. His wife knew him best in this world. She even guessed that he was planning to castrate Wen Hao. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.